Well, hey, everybody. What's going on? It's fucking Monday.
They're excited today, man. They're already getting super chats.
We already got a super chat. Thank you very much, Jeffy Art.
Giving fucking super chats.
I said, yeah, everybody must be in a good mood today, even though it's fucking Monday.
That's terrible.
But, maybe they're just trying to, hype themselves up and feel better,
I was listening to that relaxing countdown music, though. Boom, boom. It was
Tom's having a moment of zen.
Yeah. I was like, oh, I love this show. Oh, I'm on it. I forgot.
Oh, my God, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Man, I love this show. Oh, that's right. It's my show.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fucking funny. I don't hear it all the time.
Yeah, I don't usually watch our shows back.
Yeah.
Unless it's something that we're, you know what I mean? Like if I kind of have to skip through an old one, like if we're doing a revisit on something. But,
They're all piling in.
I know, gang's all here. Damn.
Yeah. Where were y'all last weekend?
Well, what? When did we stream? Oh, we streamed yesterday. We talked about the Tom Cruise movie.
Yeah.
Maybe people didn't give a shit about Tom Cruise.
There wasn't a lot there. And then Friday was kind of dead.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe everybody left because of all the porny talk.
Yeah, talking about porn. Talking about our porn career.
Our burgeoning porn career.
Y'all are fucking buying up our videos. So we fucking
I noticed.
all that shit we got posted up on our StreamMate profile. Shit's flying off the shelf, and we know that that's not StreamMate people buying it because they don't really know who we are. We've only streamed 3 times, so we know that's y'all pervs buying that shit. No,
I uploaded a couple more, but I don't know if they've been approved yet. Yeah. Like I said, they're real. I had
the one from
yesterday, and then the one that that one with the weird dicks, and it's like they kept saying it's like, oh, there's an unauthorized person because your voice was in it.
Yeah.
And I kept going through there and being like, I don't hear it. But then when I went through it again just now, I was like, oh, you said something.
Yeah, okay.
Like that was really quiet.
Yeah,
and I was
AI
like, oh, okay.
it.
I didn't catch that the first time, so I edited that out.
Yeah, AI finds that.
So I'm gonna try and upload it again and see.
The one we cut last night is probably one of the best videos Jen's ever done.
I mean, I hope it came out okay because I had
special effects and everything.
Well, I don't know.
I was running the special effects. Dick was skeeting and shooting and shit. It's all the fake shit. It was all getting all over her glasses and everything. It looked beautiful. It looked real.
I had to blow it up some because
my hand kept reaching into
your
her
hand
cameras.
kept getting in there.
I was running 2 cameras at once. I had a little camera tripod. You zoomed in though to get that camera tripod.
Yeah, but like I said, I uploaded it, so we'll see if they're because they seem like real picky.
It's not them. It's AI.
I know.
It's a computer.
It's like, whose hand is this or whose voice is that? That's
any body part, any voice that's not the. In this case, not the account holder is the thing's flagged.
Right.
Because it's not authorized. So AI is real good at recognizing voices and body parts and faces.
So I had to keep blowing it and moving it around a little bit to get his hand out of it because his hand was in the corner.
I don't know how it fucking knows the difference between a real dick and a fake dick though.
Yeah, I don't know that either. Well, I don't know.
Because some of them things look realistic.
Right. Well, that's what I was kind of worried about with this one. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes.
But no, that's shit selling. And I think everything we put up is sold.
Thank you very much, John Robertson. Hey guys, how's it been? Got back into painting, and I'm trying to paint the cemetery painting from Night Gallery. Awesome!
Oh, yeah. Night Gallery painting.
Keeping with the ghost theme of tonight. Yeah, are you going to do the one... I mean, do the scariest one where, the dude is, coming out of the coffin or he's coming up toward the house. You know what I mean? Because it was, a whole series of them, of paintings. But that's, kick-ass. I really like a lot of those Night Gallery paintings, not going to lie. If somebody had them online, I could probably, print them out and just, put them in little frames. So...
Make posters of them.
Yeah, make posters of them. I don't think probably nobody has high-res ones other than the artist, but you could kind of do little ones or do a collage or something because some of them are really awesome. I still need to do... I did a video and a post over on my Scare Salon site about the first... I did the pilot of Night Gallery and I did the first season, but I forgot about that. I have the box set. So I have season 2 and season 3. So I need to get into doing that because I need to do a season 2.
I forgot to ask you.
What's that?
On that last edit he did. First of all, I couldn't find out what folder that was in on Dropbox. I couldn't.
Well, I haven't. No, I didn't put the edited version in Dropbox. Just the raw one is in there.
Okay, you got to get the edited version in there too. I want a copy.
Okay. Well, like I said, I just finished editing it, and then I uploaded it to StreamMate.
I wanted to ask you, were you able to take out that mechanical noise during the special effect?
Yeah.
Okay. So that wasn't a problem.
I think. Well, I mean, I just lowered the volume, just kind of.
Okay. Because that shit was making all kinds of noise.
Yeah, I know.
All right.
I know what I'm doing.
Yeah, hopefully. But the edit and all the camera angles and everything, it worked out?
Yeah, like I said, it came out. It came out okay. Like I said, I had to blow it up so it's not super high definition or anything like that.
You got all the upshots and everything.
Well, I didn't put all of that in there. I put
some, huh?
Yeah.
Okay,
I put some of that in there. But
I wanted to see it.
Well, like I said, I only just did it. It's I don't have a lot of time. I wasn't home all day.
All right.
So I did it real quick, and then it's I uploaded it, but I haven't uploaded it to Dropbox or anything like that.
All right.
It was one of these days. Like I said, one of these days I'm going to teach you how to use that.
Yeah, so I could do it.
Yeah, I'm going to teach you how to use that program.
It doesn't look that hard.
It's not. It's not complicated.
Yeah.
I use Wondershare Filmora.
Yeah.
And it's pretty. It's like I said, it's not difficult. It's just tedious.
And you got to line up the audio.
Yeah, it's just tedious.
Yeah. Okay.
So
audio came from both cameras or one camera?
No, I didn't do it like that. I just.
There's no audio? There's got to be audio.
No, that's not what I meant. I meant there's audio, but it's just it didn't really matter because I wasn't really talking or anything like that. Yeah. So I just kind of
So it didn't matter it's just whatever the shot was.
Whatever the shot was, that was
That was the audio? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. It's fine. Like I said, I know what I'm doing.
Hopefully it sounds good. You gotta use noise reduction.
Huh?
You did noise reduction.
I do it on there sometimes, but you can't do it too much or it'll make everything sound real tinny.
Okay. All right.
So like I said, a lot of times I usually just kind of leave a regular room tone because it sounds more natural.
Sounds more natural. All right. All right. I want to see it.
But yeah, I'm just saying I had to do it really quick. So you know what I mean.
All right.
I don't have a lot of time to fuck around with
this.
Yeah,
they're all in here now.
Good. All right. So finally, we're gonna get to the ghost story stuff. And this one, this is season 7 one. This is episode number 4. Evil Never Dies. Now, I will say, and I think I might have mentioned this before, but as the seasons went on, particularly into season 7, they tried to make it more, like I said, more cinematic. But another thing I noticed too, and you can see it from the length of my notes from earlier episodes and the length of the notes from the later episodes, is that there was substantially less content. A lot of the stuff was repeated. You know what I mean? Because they started doing the thing where, they'd be like, oh, all this shit happened. And then it would be commercial break. And then it would come back. And then they would reiterate a bunch of shit that just happened. Let's do a summation of everything that's happened up till now. I'm yeah, but we already had all that information. But I feel like they did that because they didn't have as much material. So they were trying to stretch it out. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because, sometimes on the older shows, I had 5 pages of notes. This one, I have 1 page front and back, and then 1 page, that's it. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because a lot of it was just repeating stuff that had already happened. So, that's all. But this was a pretty good. I liked this one because, one, it was kind of unusual in the sense that they didn't get the church involved and nobody said anything about demons, which is nice. It just seemed in this one, it seemed like a ghost, but the ghost was just a dick. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Nobody said anything about demons or portals or anything like that.
I actually liked this episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I really liked the ghost that they had. I thought it was really creepy looking. Looked a little bit like Tora Johnson.
Yeah.
A little bit. Especially that part in Plan 9 from Outer Space where he's climbing out of the thing with the white eyes, you know what I mean? In the grave. It kind of reminded me of that.
This particular episode, the way it's shot and just the things that happen, it kind of reminded me of the first 4 seasons. It was kind of like something out of there. In other words, the way it was told, but it was shot better.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Tammy says it's in Jacksonville. Yeah, this was actually in Florida. This one, Pensacola, which is North Florida. I've actually never been to Pensacola, even though I've lived in Florida my whole life.
That's damn near Alabama, I think.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
It's up. I think it's up in the Panhandle.
Yeah, that's what I said. It's basically Alabama.
Yeah.
I think it's right across the Alabama border, I think.
Yeah, if I remember correctly.
Because I remember on the coast of Mississippi, we used to mention Pensacola all the time, and that I think that was only like an hour or so away. 2 hours away, and coastline of Alabama's small.
I don't think I have never been. I've been in North Florida. Obviously, I've been to Jacksonville because my mom used to live there, and I've been out of Florida. Like I've driven out of Florida and like into Georgia and like up into Baltimore and stuff. But so I've driven through a lot of states. But I have never been driven into the Panhandle of Florida.
It's like Mississippi.
Yeah, I know. I've heard, but I've never been there.
More trailer parks.
Yeah.
A lot of trailer parks.
I've been to South Florida, like I've been to Fort Lauderdale and Miami and shit like that, but I've never been to the Keys either, now that I think about it. I should probably go one of these days. But yeah, I've never been up in the Panhandle at all. But yeah, so this one, because, Florida is massive.
People don't realize.
So,
big difference between, say, Panhandle, Orlando area where we're at, and fucking Miami. There's a huge difference. That's like different countries.
Yeah, pretty much. And we mentioned that before. Like, the other parts of Florida are like... it's still Florida, you know what I mean? But there's a lot of different...
differences.
Sections of it.
Yeah. Well, like I said, you're going to go to the Panhandle, it's Anglos. It's not like people from Mississippi. It's like white people from Mississippi. You go down to Miami, man, that's almost like North Cuba. It's like Central America.
Yeah.
It's more like Central America. And they've been there forever. They were there before there was a United States, back when this was Spanish Empire. Florida's old, real old. It's older than the United States.
Well, yeah, like I said, all you have to do is go to St. Augustine and see that.
Right.
Because that was there hundreds of years before. But, some of those buildings were.
1500s.
Yeah, that was built in the 1500s. Okay, so this one took place in Pensacola, which I thought was kind of neat. They took care to mention several times during the course of this show that the house where all of this takes place was $1 million mansion, $1 million house. They kept saying that. I think he said it like 3 or 4 times.
This bitch was $1 million.
It's like, see, you could even have $1 million house and your shit will still be haunted by ghosts. I guess that was the implication there. It was like, ghosts will even haunt $1 million. And actually, if I was a ghost, I would much rather haunt $1 million mansion than some fucking rundown trailer park someplace.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you?
In Pensacola, $1 million would fucking buy you a huge ass mansion too.
The house that they had on this episode was nice, but it wasn't like super over the top.
I'd like to see what the house really looked like.
Yeah, I'm sure you could probably.
If it was $1 million, then there's a lot in it.
Yeah.
It was probably an old Victorian.
I would imagine.
A giant old Victorian, yeah. Money eater.
Well,
They just eat up your money.
Can't
eat them or cool them.
Yeah. It's probably better, like, if you build a mansion nowadays, obviously, with all the, all the technology they have now, it's much better, but
and
those old houses are kind of...
$1 million gets you a hell of a McMansion, if you got enough property to put it on. It won't last long, but they're not designed to last long, The modern construction materials is pretty cheap. They look good, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Murder Hornet, this is a callback to a discussion we had on several shows ago. Says, I accidentally slipped and my cat went up my ass.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's happened somewhere.
Yeah. Show up to the emergency room. I was walking. How did they get up in there? I was walking and I tripped.
Yeah.
And I landed on that shampoo bottle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Camp Guy's talking about Destin, Florida. Destin is a huge high-end resort place now, destination, very high-end developments and golf and tennis clubs. Yeah.
Where's that? The Panhandle?
I thought that was over on the West Coast, but I could be wrong about that. I can't remember where it's at. He says, all the way from Panama City Beach to Destin is very high-density, high-end retail, townhouses, strip malls, every 3/4 of a mile. Yeah. I could barely drive a pickup truck between all the condos and townhouses. Yeah. Highest density development I've ever seen here in Florida. Yeah. I thought it was over on the West Coast, like over in the Tampa area, but it might be in South Florida, actually, now that I'm thinking. It's like, I've lived in Florida my whole life, but I can't remember where all these fucking cities are. Because, you know what I mean? I'm pretty familiar with, like, Central Florida, because that's generally where our stomping grounds are. But other than that, like, I know the names of the cities. I'm like, I can't quite remember where that's at. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for you Europeans that may be listening to us or people in other countries, United States is not really a country. It's a fucking planet. All right, it's almost totally enclosed. Each state is like its own country. Some of these states are kind of like 3 countries joined. And the people don't give a shit about what's happening outside the United States. They couldn't point to anything in a map. They couldn't name most of the other countries if you were to point at them in a map. It's just it's its own planet.
Yeah, you just point to it and they're just like, that's just foreign.
Yeah, foreigners. I don't know, foreigners. You could point to just any country in Europe. They would just over and over again, just say, yeah, that's England. Yeah, that's England.
That's also
Which one's that
England.
one? That one's England too. That's probably Germany. What about that one? I think that's England. Yeah.
Isn't there one called France over there
Yeah,
somewhere?
France. That's way over here. Yeah.
They're pointing to like fucking Japan or something.
They would recognize Russia. They would recognize Russia. But you say, where's China? They wouldn't be able to point it out.
Probably not.
Nope.
I used to be quite good at geography back in the day, but you know. All right, so yeah, so Pensacola, $1 million mansion. They really wanted you to know, on Escambia Bay, which is quite a famous body of water here in Florida. So this all stuff started in summer of 2009. So the woman at the center of this is named Jennifer. I think they said her last name was Welburn. I'm pretty sure that's what... None of these haunting DVDs have closed captioning. So I guess they were just kind of like, fuck you deaf people, pretty much. I don't know about the later ones, like, because we bought, like, digitally, we have season 8, and we bought season 11? I know we bought 2 seasons, like on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
I know we have 8, but that's only 4 episodes.
Yeah.
And then I think we bought season 11.
There's a new one up there that we haven't bought yet, right?
Yeah, I think there's it goes up to season 12. There's a couple, but there's a couple seasons that they, like, I think season 9, I don't think they have it. Like, it's up there, but then when you click on it, it says not available.
Yeah.
But we do have season 8 though.
And 11 is up there. We haven't bought it yet.
Right.
We had to buy it just for shits and giggles and look at it.
Yeah, we actually started rewatching season 8 the other day, but then I realized I was like, oh shit, there's only 4 episodes. What's that all about?
Yeah, and I remembered him as soon as I saw him.
I did too, yeah, because we watched them not that long ago. I think that's why. Because, I mean, we lived in this house when we bought that, so it hasn't been
that long.
It's just been like a year, maybe not even that long. So yeah, they were all very familiar. So yeah, so her name's Jennifer. I'm pretty sure they said it was Welburn. So for a while, I guess she was a single mom, and she had 2 daughters whose names were Lauren and Candace. And Lauren was 18 at the time, and Candace was 17. Now, so I guess she'd been raising them on her own for a long time, but then she reconnects with her high school sweetheart, whose name was Jamie. He was also interviewed on here as well. And they got engaged and moved to this big-ass mansion in Pensacola. And, you know, the girls love him, and he's the father figure, blah-de-blah. So Escambia Bay, if you don't know, which is, I'm assuming the way they were talking, the house was right on the bay. You know what I mean? So I don't know exactly where this house is at, but yeah. So Escambia Bay, kind of well known for like a lot of stuff in the slave trade. So that kind of plays into the story like later on. So they move into this house. Now, 2 weeks after they move in, the first thing that Jennifer said that she noticed was that she's walking up the stairs or something, and she sees that, you know how people have, like, family pictures and shit, like, all, like, hung up on the wall, like, going up the staircase? All of them were upside down, which she thought was very weird. Now, she just thought it was the daughters kind of fucking around, because she walked up and she's like, why the fuck are all these pictures upside down? And then one of the bedroom doors, like, on the upstairs, like, kind of closed by itself. Like I said, she didn't think ghosts first. You wouldn't jump to ghosts first thing. I mean, especially if you have teenagers in the house. You'd be like, oh, well, they're just fucking around. Even though they said that they weren't. It's like, why the fuck would we turn all the pictures upside down, Mom? Come on. Now, so basically, too, another thing that she noticed, she's like, the windows in Lauren's room were open all the time, and both the girls were like, we didn't open them. And she would get, like, really mad because it was just kind of, and if you grew up in Florida, like, you can't leave the window. She's like, the air conditioning is open. You're air conditioning the whole neighborhood. You know what I mean? Because, like, I remember, like, my grandma saying shit like that. Like, if you open the window, you're air conditioning the whole neighborhood. So, yeah, so you're not really supposed to open the windows if the air conditioning was on. So the mom got really mad and was like, you know, why are these windows always open? And she's like, I don't know. We're not opening them. So I guess they were implying that, like, the windows open by themselves all the time. So there was that. Even though, and it would happen, like, even when Lauren wasn't home, like, when she was at school or whatever. So, a few months go by. I guess, like, little shit like this was just happening this whole time. And then one night, the two teenage girls are home by themselves. And they hear kind of like a thumping noise coming from upstairs, and then, like, footsteps. So, even though if I was home by myself and I heard that upstairs, I would absolutely not go upstairs. I'd be going out the front door and getting in my fucking car and getting the fucking away from there, because I'm thinking that's a living person walking around up there, and I'm not going up there and getting fucking killed. But one of the girls is like, I'm gonna go up there and check that out. Then I'm like, okay, that's how every horror movie starts, but all right. So she goes up to check, and then she's like, she thought the sound was coming from her parents' room. So she goes in there, but then there's nothing in there. Although in the show, they couldn't resist it. They had to do the fake jump scare where it's real creepy and Lauren's in there being like, looking around the room. It doesn't look like there's anything. And then, like, the sister comes up behind her. Hey, what's going on? You know what I mean? And she was like, what the fuck? You know what I mean? So it's like that. They have to do that, I guess, because nothing was up there. So they had to have some kind of, like, scary thing happen. So yeah, they did a fake jump scare there. So a few nights after that, Jennifer, the mom, is in the kitchen, and she said, she was like washing the dishes or whatever, and she said she sensed a change in the air, like it started feeling really heavy, or like someone was watching her. And then she looked up, there was like a window over the kitchen sink, and she sees this real creepy face, like looking at it, or like a man's face, but the way that she talked, I'm pretty sure that she didn't think it was a living person. She said it looked like a face of sheer evil, quote unquote. I think that's what she said. And actually in the show, like in the reenactment, I really liked the makeup job they did on that. That was like real creepy looking, like what they did with the guy like looking in the window. It looked really good because he had kind of like his face was like kind of dark, kind of fucked up looking, and then like it looked like he had one white eye. It was just like all white, and then the other one like you couldn't really see it. So yeah, it was like really creepy. So she saw that and screamed her fucking head off, as you probably would. So Jamie, her fiance, hears her screaming her head off and runs out. She was like, there's somebody out the window. She didn't say it was a ghost or nothing, but she said there was somebody outside the window looking at her. So Jamie goes out there with a bat or whatever, and he's looking around, and obviously there's nobody out there now. So instead of just saying, oh, well, maybe there was somebody, but now they're gone or they ran away, he says, basically, you're making it up. Or you're, like, imagining it. What he actually said to her was, you're watching too much TV. You watch too much TV, he says to a grown woman. And so it's making you see things outside the window. So, yeah. And I don't know. I kind of got the implication that she was saying that she thought it was maybe not a person. Like, maybe she thought it was a ghost. Because I think that at that point, that was when he said, oh, I think you're watching too much TV if you think the shit's haunted or whatever. So Jen decides that even though she's pretty sure that she just saw a fucking evil ghost outside the window staring at her, she decided not to tell her daughters because she didn't want to scare them or like upset them. But after a while, she did actually tell them, at which point they told her that they had been seeing and hearing shit too. So now they're kind of all on the same page. So they said over the next few weeks, they said the fear just kept getting worse and worse in the house because they were all, the three women were kind of like talking about the haunting. And so they were kind of like freaking out about it. And of course, Jamie like didn't believe any of it and just thought they were all nuts or whatever. So Lauren, the older girl, she was 18, like I said. The windows in her room kept opening by themselves, and she's in her room one night, and the closet door opened by itself. And again, haven't they seen any horror movies? So she's in the room, the closet door opens by itself. What does she do? I mean, what would I do? I would run the fuck out of the bedroom and be like, nope, I'm not staying in there anymore. She goes toward the closet. Like, I'm going to check that out. I'm like, oh my God, why? Why are you doing that? So, as if to punish her for doing this, she said she got a real eerie feeling, and then this big, scary shadow man dude comes, like, popping out the closet and is, like, reaching for her, like, raw, like a fucking monster. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so she's like laying on the bed, and she said that she was like paralyzed, like she was trying to scream and she couldn't, and like she couldn't move and all this other kind of shit, like for a little while. And she's like, this thing was just kind of like right there, like hovering over her. So finally, though, this whatever spell this thing had over her, like released her, and she started like yelling her head off, like holy shit, you know what I mean? So then at that point, like her mom comes up and is like, what the, you know, what's going on up here? And they look at her arm, and her arm has 2 fresh claw marks on it. Not 3, so I like that they didn't do the demonic thing, because they always fucking do that. It's always 3, and so then they bring the priest in, and they're like, oh, that means it's a demon. This time it was just 2. It was just 2 kind of claw marks, and they were bleeding and stuff. Now, Lauren, who was interviewed on the show, she said that she had seen the man, the shadow figure, and that she saw him lunge at her, but she did not remember being scratched. Like, she didn't feel that happen, I guess. So, like, she just saw that, like, afterward. So, after that, she's like, yeah, I don't think I'm going to be, like, staying in this bedroom anymore, and who can blame her, really? And at this point, like, Jamie is just, he doesn't know what to think. He doesn't know if she did that to herself or what the fuck is going on. So Jennifer decides she's going to let both of the girls, you know, sleep in the room with them because she's afraid they might be in danger because now they're getting hurt and stuff. So she also starts kind of reading Jamie the riot act about the haunting. It's like, you know, do you believe us now? And it's like, this shit happened and all this other kind of stuff. And he doesn't really, like a lot of the dudes on a haunting, you know, if they can't punch it, they don't really know what to do about it. And so one of the dudes on there said pretty much that exact thing, and that made me laugh because it seemed like a lot of dudes could kind of say a similar thing, but I like that he just kind of came out and said it like that, like, I can't punch it, like, I don't know what to do. I'm out of options. But yeah, so he clearly didn't know what to do because this thing is like fucking up his stepchildren, and he like can't do anything about it. So and there's actually, we'll get into this, but there's like kind of a funny there's kind of a funny like incident like later on where that kind of comes into play. So since he doesn't know what to do, Jennifer's like, well, I'm gonna find somebody that can help us. So she calls up this paranormal expert, supposedly, and an empath named Tony Talley, who was also extensively interviewed on the show. So Tony Talley shows up and immediately says the property, like even around the property before you go in the house, feels very negative energy, like very uncomfortable, just feels very off. And she said when you're in the house, you always felt like you had to look over your shoulder, like there was somebody behind you all the time. So Tony goes up to Lauren's room first and senses some evil up there, as you do. And then apparently, she said, the mirror over the dresser in Lauren's room, like, fogged up by itself, and then some unseen finger wrote "How" on there. At which point I said, oh my god, their house is haunted by the computer from 2001: A Space Odyssey. That is scary. But yeah, so it wrote "Hal" on the mirror, so it's like, hey, that's what my name is, I guess. And then she sees like a dude, like the same dude that popped out of the shadow. It wasn't really a dude, it was like a smoky figure person shadow thing, you know? It kind of looked like that. So like a dude, but like made of black smoke.
Their effect was actually pretty good.
Yeah, like I said, I really liked the makeup and the effects in this. They were really good. They were like really creepy.
Make a good standalone little monster horror movie.
Yeah.
Ghost story.
Yeah.
Kind of like something out of The Conjuring. Kind of like that. I
wonder if you would like the Conjuring movies.
I've seen some of them. I liked them.
Did you see the one that was based on Enfield?
No.
They
I saw the one.
They changed quite a bit.
I saw
but it was still okay.
La Llorona.
La Llorona, yeah.
Yeah, that was a good one. That fucking scared the shit out of that fucking Hispanic kid that was fucking behind us. Remember?
That's right. We saw that in the theater.
Yeah, he was trying to play it off. He screamed like a girl.
He did, yeah.
And he goes, "No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding." And his friends were like, "Yeah, right."
Yeah, right. You were just kidding.
Right.
Well, that's okay. That's what horror movies are supposed to do.
That was a high-pitched scream like a girl.
That's awesome, though. I mean, I didn't think that movie was particularly scary. It was pretty cool. I liked the
way it looked.
Yeah. I like the way
he
the ghost
screamed when he
looks.
saw it. It was coming close at him. Remember, and then there was like a flash or something.
Right.
He screamed.
That's like super funny.
I thought it was a pretty good one.
Yeah, it was pretty good. It was. What other Conjuring ones did we see? We saw The Nun, which was alright.
Yeah, it was okay. I saw that one.
And then,
I wonder if you can buy them as a set.
You can, yeah.
You can? Yeah, all right.
Yeah, there's a whole box set of all the Conjuring movies.
No,
I don't. Well, the thing about it is that I know, like, a lot of people really like, especially like the first Conjuring movie. But it's good, but it's not like great. Like, I get why people like it. I'm not like a big. I don't know. It doesn't stand out as much to me as it seems to stand out to other people, and maybe that's just me.
Okay, well, if anybody wants us to review the entire Conjuring series.
I mean, the Conjuring universe. How many movies is it now? 7?
I don't know, but if anybody,
7, 8.
If anybody wants us to get on that, if you send us the box set on Blu-ray, we'll do it. Put it right in the line.
I'm pretty sure there's like a whole box
We
set.
still got to finish fucking the Bates Motel
I got to
series.
finish Bates Motel.
Have you been reviewing that season by season?
No, I still got to do season 1. That's like that's next on my agenda. I'm hoping to get to it in like a week or two.
Yeah, I forgot. Was that Tammy that sent that? Who sent that?
Celtic Angel sent that.
Yeah, that's right. Celtic Angel sent that. Right. So we got to get that done too.
Yeah, because I watched the first season.
I've seen
and part of the second one.
I couldn't really get into it, but I'll try again on the second season.
Yeah. Well, if you want to rewatch the first season with me, we can do that too.
No, I'm good. Let's get through it.
All right.
We'll get through it.
Because I was gonna like kind of scroll through it like again, so I could
remember.
So I could write a script about it.
Okay. Well, how long would that take to go through the whole season again?
I don't know. I don't remember how many episodes it is, but
okay.
I mean, we can get to it like
All
over
right.
the next couple days. Yeah. So the woman, the paranormal lady, sees the Hal written on the mirror, and sees the smoky dude in the corner. And she, I wrote, Tony drops her nuts, yelling, "You're not welcome here. The Holy Spirit that's welcome is God," and blah, blah, blah. And that seems to work temporarily. The ghost is like, oh, okay, fair enough, and vanishes. So at that point, Tony is drawn to the backyard and says it feels real fucking creepy back there, saying she senses that a lot of lives have been lost on this property, sensing extreme sadness. And says that she sees a vision of many people hanging from the trees, which was also like a pretty effective image. They didn't show. They mostly just it was kind of good. They kind of showed like people hang, but like just mostly like their feet and this, so they're all like dangling from trees and stuff, which I thought was kind of like a creepy image. So apparently, what she takes from this, like from her visions, is that Hal, the dude that wrote on the mirror, and the asshole that's haunting the house, was a slave trader, like a plantation slave master, because I guess this area used to be a plantation. Because like I said, it's right on Escambia Bay, and there was a lot of slave trade going on there. So apparently this dude was, a real dick, and apparently mistreated slaves, like killed them, shit like that. So because she surmises that it's Hal that's haunting this house, she assumes that the family is probably in danger. So she goes and tells the family what's going on and says, the dude I saw in my vision, who I'm presuming is Hal, is this real tall dude, big guy, bald, with this horrible scowl on his face. So it's like she describes him, and Jennifer and the teenage daughters are like, holy shit, that's the dude that we've seen around the house. So, confirmation there, I'm guessing. So they're like, okay, well, what else are you going to do? You got to do a cleansing. That's what you got to do. So Tony starts in Lauren's room and does the whole sage and all that stuff. And then for the next few days, and this is what always happens in these shows, man. For the next few days, everything's okay. Hey, it feels like pretty good in the house. Everything feels lighter. Like maybe the ghost has disappeared. No smell of sanctity or nothing like that, but let's not go that far. But, it feels like, oh, maybe the cleansing, got rid of this dick ghost that they have in the house. And they're hoping that they can have their normal lives back, right? However, if you've seen any episode of the show at all, you always know that this is just the calm before the storm, because you know that, shit's going to get real bad afterward, and it's going to get worse. And that's exactly what happens. The next thing that happens is this asshole ghost, Hal, he grabs Jamie's ankle, the guy, grabs him and drags him out of bed, right? Like, whoosh. And this part was super funny because Jamie has not really believed any of this supernatural nonsense up until this point, until whoever this ghost was grabbed his ankle and like hefted him out the bed, right? And he thought that the hand had, I guess he thought that the hand had come from like under the bed, so he thought somebody, like a person, was under the bed. So he jumps out of the bed and like fucking, and he said something, this is not exactly what he said, but I'm paraphrasing. He said something like, you know, I'm a standard Southern Christian boy or whatever, and he's like, and I keep a Bible next to my bed right next to the 45.
And the 45 on top of it.
On top of it, and I was like, yeah, that tracks. Yeah, but that's why we laughed. That's why we laughed, because I was like,
protection against fucking, you know, the earthly and the unearthly.
Right. It's like we got it both right there,
covered right there,
right within like reaching distance. Yeah. So it's like, you know, whatever you need to. So yeah. So he had that right there. So he picks up the 45. And he's going to shoot the bed. He's just like standing there being like, come out from under there, motherfucker. You know what I mean? He didn't say that, but you know what I mean? So then he like flips the whole bed over. Like he flips the mattress over and he flips the frame over and everything like that. And of course there's nobody there. Yeah. At which point he starts freaking out.
Jen was laughing at it. I wasn't really laughing at it because I did that. I did something very similar to that in that bad house that I was in. Fucking that one night where that thing was, I felt it fucking bearing down on me. Fucking, and it was just fucking oppressing me. I couldn't figure out what it was. It was like something just staring at you, like it just fucking hated you, like it was swimming around you. I grabbed a weapon, but it was more like a talisman. I knew you couldn't shoot it, but it just made you felt better.
Yeah, I think that's,
you know what I mean, like you know. And I grabbed it. It was a Ruger GP100 37 Magnum revolver, stainless. They were only stainless, I think. I don't think they made blue ones. But I just grabbed that and fucking I started threatening it. Or get it the fuck off me. Yeah, this is your house, and I will burn this house down. I will burn your house down if you don't leave me alone. It went away. Didn't fuck with me ever again after that. Not directly. But the presence was still in there. Never saw it, never moved anything. Just a very disturbing feeling. The place was very strong with the dark side. Not just me, girlfriends. Eric, who was the guy, my army buddy, we got out 4 days apart and moved to Boston when we ETS'd. If it was just get out of the army and moved in there, we moved into that place. Big old 3-story fucking Victorian house with a layout didn't make sense. I forgot what the name of the street was, but I could find it on the map. The little bitty circle, little cul-de-sac, in right off of in Arlington, Massachusetts. And that shit was a little neighborhood, one of the boroughs of Boston. There was something wrong with that house, and he didn't believe in any of that shit. He knew there was something wrong with that house.
I think, well, the reason that I laughed at this particular dude is one of the reasons is what Zach just said. I remember this one, the acting from the dad in this episode is so bad. Yeah, I think that was part of it. And I also thought it was amusing. I always think it's amusing in these shows because the dudes are always just like, you girls are crazy. Like, you see and all this other kind of stuff. And then, like, something like that happens. And I just love the way... Like, his poor, like, wife and kids have been dealing with this for months and months, and he's just, like, been poo-pooing the whole thing. And then all of a sudden, like, and then he just flips his fucking shit. And it's like, and they're just like, told you so. Like, you know. So for some reason, that's very, very funny to me. So it's like, so the fact that and I was laughing, too, at, like, the whole, like, Bible with the 45, and it's like, that made me laugh, too.
You can't punch it.
That's what I'm saying. You can't punch it. And so they don't, and so like I said, they're out of options.
The only thing that you can do, they were out of options. I just held hostage what it valued, which was the house. I held that hostage. I said, I'm gonna go outside and I'm gonna get some gasoline out of the car. I'm gonna burn this house down. And fucking it, and I meant it. And it went away. Well, it got off of me. It's trying to drive me out of the house. It's trying to drive Eric out of the house too. So never saw it, never moved anything.
So you knew what its weakness was...
Yeah, its weakness was the house.
It wanted
the house.
It wanted to stay in the house like that.
Yeah.
So, nobody ever really seems to think to do that on a haunting, do they? They always kind of threaten the ghost, and the ghost is like, man, what the fuck are you going to do
You always
to me?
threaten what the enemy values most.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying, you'd think that somebody on a haunting would have thought of that, too. But they... Not that I remember.
If it's going to drive me out, I'm going to go. I'm going to leave. I'm going to burn that house down. It's not mine.
Yeah, it's like...
It's not my house.
I don't give a shit.
I was renting it. You know?
Not my problem.
It's not my fucking problem. All right? I don't know what happened. It got cold in there. I had a lamp. I guess
it shorted out.
Shorted out, yeah.
Or something.
Yeah. Don't know what happened.
But yeah, so I did laugh at the guy because the guy goes on like this big long tirade. Everybody's like, this is my house, this is my... He's just like wigging out. And like I said, Zach is like, he's not the best actor, but that made it like way funnier to me. Just the fact that he was standing over there pointing the 45 at like the mattress of the frame that he had like flipped over because he thought something was under there and something that grabbed his ankle. And so he's just like standing there like yelling at nobody, and it's just like, I don't know, that really made me laugh a lot. But yeah, so he just goes on this big long fucking thing. So at this point, Jennifer calls Tony back, the paranormal expert, and says, the shit came back, so implication being that your cleansing didn't work, so maybe you might need to like come back and help out and maybe fix that. So Tony, to her credit, does actually come back to the house and does a second cleansing, which what the fuck else are you going to do? I mean, it's not like you can... That's all they can do. They just do a cleansing. You do a cleansing or you do an exorcism, and then they're like, well, I'm out of ideas. There's like really nothing else you can do. So at this point, she does the second cleansing, and she's like, look, this is like, this is going to need some divine intervention probably. It's like, so I don't really know if I can handle this by myself. And she's kind of like afraid for the family, especially now that this asshole ghost is like, you know, not only clawed the daughters, but also, you know, grabbed the dude's ankle and pulled him out of bed and shit like that. So he's clearly like very powerful and very pissed off, evidently. So while Tony is there doing the cleansing or whatever, apparently there's like a real loud thumping noise like on the wall behind her. And then they said it looked like she spaced out, and then she gets like bodily thrown back against the wall. You know what I mean? So yeah, which was also kind of funny.
Any more ice than that?
Sure, yeah.
I'm gonna make myself another drink.
Oh, okay. Wow, that was quick.
Yeah. Taking care of business.
Taking care of business. That business being getting inebriated. But yeah, so she gets thrown back against the wall in what is actually like kind of a funny... I don't know, because she was just like this dumpy older lady, and it was just like funny, like getting thrown back against the wall. And on her arm, like after she's recovered and everything, they go over and get her. And they said on her arm, it looked like something bit her, like it was like a flame. It looked kind of like, I mean, in the reenactment, it kind of looked like a vampire bite, to be honest. It was just kind of like two fang marks with like blood coming out or something. And at this point, Tony's like, yeah, this is beyond my pay grade, clearly. So I'm just gonna get the fuck out, if you don't mind. Like I said, can't blame her. And she's like, but I will find somebody to help you. Whether she actually did or not, I don't know, because what happened after that is that the family is like, you know, this is getting bad, and maybe we should move. You know, even though... just like most families on this show, like, you know, not everybody can just like fucking...
Oh, I forgot to put ice in it.
So he just brings it back the same as it was before. I guess I was sitting there thinking, wow, that ice melted really fast, like just from the next room over. But it is Florida, so you know, ice doesn't last too long. But yeah, so they're talking about moving, and they're like, well, we can't really afford it, and blah, 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 but maybe we should, and all that. And then there's a scene where Lauren, the 18-year-old, is in her mom's closet, like a walk-in closet, like just kind of like fucking around. She's like trying on her clothes and hats and crap like that, like you do. And she sees... See, I don't know if she saw this. Did she say that she saw the ghost behind her, like in the mirror? Like, it was kind of over there, like, with his one white eye, like, looking like Tor Johnson.
I can't remember.
Time for her to go to bed.
But you know how they are? They do tricky shit.
They do, yeah.
She says one thing, and then they show you something, but she didn't actually say that she saw that.
Because sometimes they just show it, like, behind them, and I'm like...
Yeah, and that's just kind of one of the tricks that this series does. You're not quite sure if they added that fact, if they added that scene, or if she said she saw that. I don't know. They do that.
Yeah. But so, evidently, like, the ghost is kind of, like, lurking around back there in the back of the closet. And then she said that she felt, like, a burning or stinging sensation, like, on the back of her neck. And then she screams, and then the mom comes in, and there's, like, a big scratch, like, down. She said it was from the bottom of her hairline, like, all the way, like, down to the middle of her back. Like, not super deep or anything like that, but I guess it was, like, deep enough to draw blood, evidently, at least according to what they said. So, this is apparently the last straw for Jennifer. She is like, we are leaving this fucking house right now. I don't really give a shit about the financial situation or anything like that. I just can't take it anymore. And at this point, I guess Jamie, the husband, you know, since he had some bad shit happen to him too, he conceded, and he was actually, like, interviewed on the show, too. He's like, I had to concede that the house won because, you know, we just couldn't stay there anymore. So they did actually end up struggling financially for a while, you know, but eventually they got their shit back together. They did mention at the end of this show that the $1 million house, which, like I said, they mentioned that several times, that's how much it was, it got sold back to the bank, so I guess it got foreclosed on. And eventually ended up selling to someone else for $119,000, which is very cheap for a house of that presumed size, which, you know, was $1 million. So there's that. So evidently they moved away and didn't have any more issues. I don't know. They didn't mention if the next person that owned the house had any trouble with the same asshole ghost pulling them out of bed or whatever. Tony, the paranormal expert, whether this had anything to do with this case or not, but they thought they would mention it. She said that she was sick for many years after this case, and actually stopped doing paranormal stuff for a while. One of the things that I think they ended up, she say they removed like a 4-pound tumor or something like that. So I don't know if that had anything to do with anything. I'm sure that was probably just a coincidence. But she attributed her years of bad health afterward to this particular house or this particular case, and she said she even stopped doing paranormal shit for a while because of the trauma. So there's that. But like I said, that was pretty much it. They didn't really say if they had any other problems, like I said, when they moved to another house, or if anybody else moved to this house and had problems, and like I said, I don't know where exactly this house is, so I don't know if it's like famous for being particularly haunted or anything like that. But like I said, I did like this one because it didn't have, there was no demon shit. Because I mentioned
an exorcism.
It wasn't an exorcism. There was no church involved or nothing like that. And I think you were in the bathroom when I mentioned it, but I said I liked that they had like the cuts on the arms, like the scratches on the arms, but it was just 2. Like they didn't do the three like that was all demonic. And then it's like, you know, oh, it's a mockery of the Trinity. That's what they always say. Yeah, no. That's why there's 3 of them. And I'm just kind of like, well, I like that they just kind of kept it simple. Like, it's just a ghost and he's just a jerk.
And it won. We had to get the fuck out of there.
Yeah, so they didn't solve it. Yeah. Like, they just had like a cleansing, and then the ghost was like, fuck all y'all, I'm staying in here.
I was kind of under the impression that this story actually was a little more credible than some of the other stories in the series, because it was kind of a little bit atypical, and it was more along the lines of like shit that I have actually personally seen. You never really get down to the bottom of it. Yeah. You know, and this shit about you're going to exercise it in the church, everything. That's more like an invention of daytime talk show usually, because back in the 80s. Watching Geraldo and Sally Jesse Raphael and shit, they really wouldn't do a show on a haunted house unless some pseudo clergyman wasn't there. Yeah, you know, or the Warrens, which the Warrens were mostly full of shit. Mostly, they were on some real cases, like the Enfield, but they got kicked off of Enfield.
Well, they just showed up. Nobody asked them. Nobody asked them to come there.
Right.
Which is what I thought was funny, that they made a Conjuring movie, which, like I said, if you don't, you know, they made with the Warrens in it that was about Enfield, and
they had them as the main characters.
Right.
It's not true. They got kicked off that case. They were only there a few hours.
They said they showed up on the doorstep. Like, nobody called them or nothing like that. They just showed up and was like, hey, we're here to investigate the case. And they're like, who the fuck are you?
Yeah, and they were there only for a few hours, and they basically got kicked out of there.
Yeah.
So...
Because they're like, it's okay. We
the Conjuring movie about the Enfield is pretty bullshit. Now, they did have Morris Gross, the character that played Morris Gross, but he was kind of misrepresented a bit in the movie from what I remember. And there was no mention of Guy Playfair. Well, Guy Playfair was in there too, and he wrote the book.
I think what you're thinking, because I don't think you've seen the Conjuring movie that was based on Enfield, because that was like totally different.
Because I saw one that was
they did do for British TV. They did do a 3-episode miniseries that was based on.
What I'm thinking of.
And it was actually pretty good.
Yeah.
Although, like, it hewed pretty close to the story, like, for the first 2 episodes. But then the third one, they kind of went crazy with it.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
What I saw.
So, yeah, we might have watched that together, because I remember, like, writing about it.
In the Conjuring one, the Warrens are the main characters.
Yeah, well, because that's kind of the whole thing.
Okay, well, then I haven't seen those then.
Right.
Or I think maybe I've seen clips from it, but I don't think I've seen those. Because the Warrens weren't really involved in the Enfield case.
No, they weren't. Oh, Annabelle. That was another one that we saw. Didn't we see one of the Annabelle movies?
Yeah. Yeah.
That was all right. We didn't see the first Annabelle in the theater. We saw Annabelle something. I don't remember what the second one was, but we saw that one in the theater.
The Warrens were a marvelous couple when it came to grifting off of the paranormal.
They were
the demonologists. They were a creation of their era. They were charlatans, though.
Yeah, big time. We've done a couple shows about them.
Even though I think some of the cases that they were on were real, but they were bullshitters.
Yeah, they like to show up and insert themselves into investigations.
So they could write books and then go on the talk show circus.
Right, and say that it's like, oh, we figured this case out, or we solved it, or whatever. And Sebastian said, I thought it was Maurice Gross's case. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was Maurice Gross, and it was being documented by Guy Lyon Playfair.
Yeah, who's an author,
And his book is called This House is Haunted, and we have it here, hardcover. I had to buy it used off of eBay. It was cheap. It wasn't cheap. It was expensive.
It was an old library book.
Old library book, and it's a great book. And if you read This House is Haunted, Guy Lyon Playfair, and read Mammoth Mountain Poltergeist, that was about the story of me, Lois, and Red, and the poltergeist incident that happened with us, and it only lasted like a week. Okay, they usually don't last long. You'll see that Enfield was a lot more powerful. It lasted a lot longer. It had some badass phenomenon, but in general, ours was like that. It's recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis, and it's 13, 14-year-old kids emanate it, and they create it through the subconscious mind. At the time, I thought it was ghost. We all thought it was a ghost, but looking back on it, no, because it's happened since then. It's happened recently. I can get it to do a few little things here and then, but I have to be frustrated or angry. Mostly frustration. Because anger, you can vent anger. Frustration is you can't vent it, so it vents out in recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis. But it's not your conscious mind. It's one of your unconscious personas that does it, like a character out of one of your dreams.
Sebastian says, I can imagine Tom and Jenny's version of a house cleansing. Tom pulls out a Magnum 357 and threatens to burn it out, and Jenny shouts, asshole. Bad ghost leaves quick. Yeah, yeah, we're not going to do any of that hippy-dippy, house cleansing bullshit with the sage and everything. Down to the bottom of it. You get the fuck out.
Burn this damn house down if I see you again. It's not my house, it's your house, and I'm going to burn it. I'm going to burn it the fuck down. That's what I told her. I know this is your house. That's why I'm going to burn it if you fuck with me.
And then what are you going to do? You're just going to be a ghost standing in a field like a douche.
I said, I'll just get in the car and leave. Okay.
He's like, I can go to the Holiday Inn, motherfucker.
I'll just leave. I'll get another house. I'm gonna burn your house down. And it didn't fuck with us after that. And we were only there another 6 months after that. But it did I could tell it was in there though. Our girlfriends fucking could tell it was there. You had to escort them to the bathroom and wait outside while they peed. They didn't want to walk down the hallways by themselves. It was a creepy house. It was a bad house.
It's just funny to me to think that, like, the ghost, if you did burn the house down, and then the ghost would just be standing there like a dick, like in the middle of this empty lot. In the middle of
three-dimensional space.
It's
no
like
house.
It's like somehow he's like, wow, somehow like being a ghost isn't quite as scary. Like if you don't have like a haunted house, you know what I mean? I'm just kind of standing here in an empty lot. That's not quite as It's not quite as creepy.
Yeah. Looking at the houses on either side, fucking with forlorn expression on your face. Where'd my house
Maybe
go?
I could go haunt that house.
Yeah, right.
Well, maybe that's like, well, see, I don't know how the rules work. It's like, no, you can only haunt that house, and that house is gone now, so you have to stay in this empty lot, like, forever.
Yeah.
Or maybe it works like Beetlejuice, where you just have to be there for, like, 125 years or something, and you can't leave because then the sandworms will get you.
Yeah.
They're coming out. Beetlejuice 2 is coming out. I saw the
Dune 2 is coming out.
That's right. That was the other preview that we saw.
Yeah, it looks good.
Yeah.
We're gonna Dune 1. Gotta see that again. That's when see that. I think that's
it's on. I think it's on Hulu or Amazon Prime or something.
I read the book. I read the book a couple times.
I read it a long time ago.
Yeah. It's pretty
when
close.
I was a teenager.
Yeah, it's pretty close.
Well, I mean, it's a lot closer than the David Lynch one.
Yeah, but I like the David Lynch. I like the David Lynch.
I do too, but it's like I can see why he wanted his name taken off that one. It wasn't like, David Lynch usually does his own shit.
Yeah.
So that was just like adapting someone else's material.
The look of the Lynch movie is really good.
Yeah.
It looks real good.
And I mean, he was real hamstrung by
Dino De Laurentiis.
Yeah.
Studios had a lot to do with it.
So it's like he couldn't really do what he wanted to do. And I think that kind of like soured him on that whole experience. He's like, fuck it, I'm just going to make my own fucking movies from now on. And I can't blame him.
They made toys for that movie. They're fucking big, serious collector's items if you have them new in the boxes. I remember when they came out, I should have got some when I was a kid. They had the Sag Crawler and they had all... The thing is they just weren't as cool toys as Star Wars toys.
Well, and the thing about Dune is that it's not really aimed at children.
No.
So it's like it seemed like an odd choice, but they were trying to do toys for every shit, man.
Yeah.
Back in the '80s, people bitch about nowadays, but back in the '80s, they had like even a movie you wouldn't even think was like anything. Like they would have like fucking toys and board games and shit like that, like based around this fucking movie, which you know what I mean. So. Let's see. Ben says, I'm in a Dune Facebook discussion group, and it's mostly people making fun of the Lynch movie fans. I can imagine. I don't love, like, look, David Lynch is probably my favorite director. But, I mean, that Dune movie, it looks cool as hell. I'm going to say that. And I have watched it several times. And I've read the book, so I kind of know what's going on. But it's like, it's still, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. But like I said, I don't know. It seemed like he was mostly that wasn't really his fault. It seemed like, there was a lot of studio interference and stuff, and he was just kind of like, fuck this. That's like why I think he pulled an Alan Smithy on it, didn't he? At least until he got his own cut. But I don't know. I think it's cool looking, but I really, really liked the new one, the Denis Villeneuve one. And the second one looks like kick-ass. So, but like I said, I really do have to watch, because we saw the first one in the theater. But I'm gonna have to watch it again. I remember what happened, but I just saw it when we were scrolling through Amazon Prime or whatever last night. I said, "Oh, we should probably watch that before we go see the new one at the theater." But I don't remember when it comes out. I think we were talking and we didn't see the date. I do remember that the Last Voyage of the Demeter is starting in mid-August. It was either August 10th or August 15th. I can't remember. Ben says, I honestly prefer the sci-fi miniseries of Dune, but people mock them almost as much as Lynch.
The problem with the miniseries, I remembered it, was the costumes were just fucking, some of the acting was fucking terrible. The David Lynch movie had the great look, though. The way it looked and the costumes and everything was good. It's just that the Dune book is unmovable as a standalone movie. It's got to be multiple parts. And Dino De Laurentiis didn't want that. That studio thought they could only afford
Yeah,
one.
it's like, let's just cram it all into one movie, which is impossible.
Yeah, can't do it. So they wanted something to rival Star Wars. Well, Star Wars was a trilogy.
Yeah.
So why didn't they just go that route? But they didn't think that they would had the money. But it was kind of De Laurentiis Studios, man, they had some really good movies. Conan 1 and everything, and they had some real masterpieces. I really liked Flash Gordon, even though I think that kind of bombed at the theater, but it's iconic, fucking seeing it on HBO back in the day and VHS. I still love that movie. And it is what it is, you know what I mean? It's that's Flash Gordon. That's the way the source material was. But I forgot where I was going with this. It's just that Dune had to be done. They were dumb. They should have committed to like at least 2 movies with Dune.
They wouldn't do that back then, though. It's like nowadays, they'll be like, yeah, we're gonna do like a whole, we're gonna do a trilogy or we're gonna do a whole series of these movies. Like they kind of plan it more.
Yeah.
Because everything has to be like a universe nowadays, right? Because it's like they want to cash in on the shit.
Yeah.
But back then they didn't really do that. No, it's like they're like, well, the movie came out, it did really well. Oh, somebody quick, like let's cobble together a fucking sequel, and it didn't
Had De Laurentiis Studios said, okay, we're gonna agree to 2 movies. Let's cut the story in half. Lynch would have fucking delivered, I think, a really good first half, and it had made a lot of money, which would have justified the sequel. I mean, and this is how stupid. I don't want to say stupid.
Short-sighted.
De Laurentiis Studios had moments of fucking brilliance, and then just moments of boneheadedness. Every time they did something good, they counteracted it with something boneheaded. A good example was Conan the Barbarian, Conan 1, John Milius. That movie is a fucking masterpiece that stands to today. And some of the more modern edits of it that have the director's cuts, they have a lot of shit that was taken out, put back into it. That movie is mythological as hell, and it's very fucking Friedrich Nietzsche lessons and shit. That movie was fucking great, and the outro promised part 2. And had they made that part 2, but with Milius, they would have fucking had an epic on their hands. But they said, you know what? We probably missed. Part 1 was a hit, but it was rated R. We probably could have made a lot more money if it was fucking PG.
Yeah.
Let's make it a kid's movie.
Right.
And then they just fucking shot themselves.
And how'd
in the
that
foot.
go?
It should have been rated R. With more violence, actually. More sex and more violence and more fucking mythological shit in there. And they should have gone for the fucking adult market. And they would have made a lot of money because the first one was a hit. It made a lot of money. They thought they could make more if they made it PG. It's exactly the opposite happened. Destroyer came out. Destroyer's got a lot of problems, man. Stupid fucking boss fight monsters that just look terrible. I will give it that Conan the Destroyer is closer to the Marvel comics of the time.
Yeah.
Than there was the Robert. But that's not really what they should have done.
No.
And yeah, Milius's version of Conan the Barbarian is not really close to the fucking Howard books, but it was its own creation. It was basically Star Wars, prehistoric Star Wars. You know, it was good, real good. They should have just gone with that. It would have been great because Milius already had. I think he had 2 other movies.
Yeah, they could have done a whole trilogy.
Yeah, he had 2 other movies planned. It was How to Be a Man When You're Young, How to Be a Man in Middle Age, How to Be a Man When You're Old, How Do You Stay Relevant. That was it was a trilogy.
Yeah, it's tailor-made for that, for a trilogy.
Yep.
That would have been awesome.
Yep, that's what it was supposed to be.
But it's like too late now, obviously, because, they can't do it with Schwarzenegger, obviously, because he's old now, but...
Yeah, they'll never get the money. And it couldn't be Hollywood. It would have to be... Well, the Robert E. Howard estate owns everything Conan, and they are protecting it like crazy. They will not let that property go into the hands of anybody but a fucking true Conan fan. It's got to stay true to Howard's vision, because they're like it's owned almost by a religious group right now. They won't let hack filmmakers touch it, which that's great. It's better not to
yeah,
have.
They're trying. Yeah, it's better
not to have any Conan
than have a shitty
bad
one.
Conan, right? Because they had bad Conan. That last Conan, even though that last Conan could have been good, it wasn't. With that guy, what's that? Jason Momoa. I thought he made a good Conan, but just the storytelling sucked. That was not.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely has the look for Conan.
He could have done it. Who really could do it now is fucking Pena. I think his name is Joseph or Robert Pena, and that's Arnold Schwarzenegger's son.
Yeah.
And his illegitimate son. He's who he had with the Mexican maid. It looks just like Arnold, and he's a bodybuilder. He could easily play Conan.
Yeah.
Joseph Pena is his name. I don't know if he can act. But he looks just like his dad.
I don't know if I've ever seen him, actually.
He's a good-looking kid. He's about as big as Arnold was, and he claims to be natural, that he's not on any gear. And it might
that's
be.
what they all say, though.
He might be.
Yeah.
He's not quite as big as his dad,
Yeah.
But his dad had good genetics. He might be on a test, but he's in his 20s still.
But the thing about it that I think is better about entertainment nowadays is that at least they're willing now to take like a big book or an intellectual property or something like that, and they'll say, this is too much for one movie, so we're gonna make a trilogy or we're gonna make a series. They're not trying to cram everything into one movie. They still do it every now and then, because Tammy brought up Dark Tower, which that of all things, that was a really stupid thing to try to cram into one movie.
Terrible.
How many fucking books are in the Dark Tower series?
Terrible.
A lot. So, trying to do that, I mean, it would have been good if they'd have just like done the first book, and then
the first book is too hard to put in a movie.
Well, that's what I mean. Well, but they could have done like part one and then seen how that went.
That first book could cover 3 movies easily.
You know what we're talking about? What's the Stephen King book that you liked a lot about the shit, man?
The Talisman.
The Talisman. There you go.
That's Peter Straub.
You know what I was talking about? Yeah. And there was a sequel to that too. I think it was called The Black House, but I never did read that. But that's one that they never have adapted, and I don't think that they've ever even talked about adapting that. But that actually might be a decent. Like I said, I read The Talisman, but I hadn't read The Black House, which is the sequel. But that might be a good. They don't adapt a lot of Peter Straub stuff, unfortunately. I can't really. I mean, they did Ghost Story. That was back in the 80s, and then they did The Haunting of Julia.
Yeah.
With Mia Farrow, that was based on his novel Julia, and then, was that it?
I don't know. But The Talisman and The Gunslinger would have made great miniseries.
Yeah,
it'd been better than movies. It should have been something along the lines of like what's that? Like what's the one with the retro series? Stranger Things.
Which you still haven't watched.
I haven't seen it, but it'd be like Stranger Things. You could probably get 3 seasons out of fucking The Talisman. That's the way I would have gone. And you could probably get 2 or 3 seasons out of fucking the Dark Tower or The Gunslinger. Could have gotten probably 3 seasons easily, because a lot happens in that book.
And I think that would actually probably be really successful if it was done well.
If it was done right, the tone was correct. Dark Tower's got to be otherworldly, because it's happening in a parallel dimension.
Yeah. I was trying to.
But half of The Talisman is happening in a parallel universe.
Yeah.
Too.
I was trying to. I was kind of thinking about it again last night, because we rewatched. Last night we were just like flipping through, like looking for some shit to watch, and we ended up rewatching Room 237, the documentary about Shining conspiracy theories.
It's fun to watch.
It was fun to watch, yeah. Even though most of the shit in there is a reach. Yeah. I'm not saying that Kubrick didn't put like some layers and shit like that in there, because there is definitely like some hidden meaning and whatnot. But I think some of the stuff in there, they have the guy that, said that he helped fake the moon landing and all that other kind of stuff. But, the stuff about the genocide of the Native Americans and stuff like that, I think that's legit. But some of the other stuff about Apollo and all that other kind of stuff, I think that's a bunch of crap.
Yeah.
But, I don't know, but I never get tired of hearing about, like, Shining conspiracy theories. I don't know why. It's like, so, because I love that movie, and it's just, like, fascinating to me. But that's a good documentary. It's on Tubi, actually, I think.
Kubrick was a great director. He's a genius.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, if he makes a mysterious movie, you're going to have people try to read in to every little fucking aspect.
Yeah.
He wasn't that much into the details. He did it. There is a lot of detail in there. A lot of the stuff about the Native Americans, I believe, was...
Yeah, I mean, because that was pretty overt.
Pretty overt. My take on it is different, though. They were saying, well, this has to do with the Native American genocides. I don't believe that that's what Kubrick was talking about. He says it's established in the story that when they were building the Overlook, they had to repel a couple of Indian attacks. And then, what's his name, Tolman? What was that guy's name? Ullman says, this supposedly is built on an Indian burial ground. He says supposedly. Not, we know it's on an Indian burial. He says supposedly. I think what Kubrick is talking about is that the Indians were trying to get the white man off of cursed land. Not necessarily blessed land, but cursed land. That makes more sense, that this was an evil place. And they were building on top of it and going to disturb it. Which would have been dangerous for everybody on that land.
Yes, they're like, hey, knock it off.
Yeah, don't put it there. That's just radioactive. And also, maybe they might have had some kind of covenant with the Native American gods to keep people off that land. Maybe they would break some kind of agreement they had with the gods. And a lot of Indians, a lot of Native Americans, people forget this. This goes back to the 1600s, 1600s, were Christian or part Christian, where they had mixed Christianity with their own native beliefs. So they might have been trying to save people. Get off that fucking land. That's a bad place. And they built that shit on that land, and it becomes a temple of evil. These rich people going in there, rich, evil people going in there, doing bad shit. When they die, they're trapped there. Now you got all these pervy, sexually aggressive fucking ghosts trying to get people to kill each other so they can join the party. Literally, it says join the party.
Yeah,
party.
like feeding off
of people.
Right.
And I believe the reason why the Indians were attacking is to keep them off that fucking cursed land. That makes a lot more sense. Because burial grounds were not cursed lands. More like blessed lands. That was hallowed ground. You could build there. It wouldn't be an evil place. It would just be you're disrespecting their dead, you know what I mean? But it'd be like building on a graveyard. But I think they were I think it was cursed land. Something was bad there. The place was strong with the dark side.
Yeah, which kind of makes more sense to me, actually.
Yeah. And I think the elites that built that there knew it was bad. That's why they were building there. That's what I think.
Because they wanted that.
They wanted that. They were trying to build a temple to evil. And then they put a bunch of Native American stuff in there. Okay. To kind of add insult to injury.
Yeah.
That type of deal.
Yeah, because that was something. And I don't even remember. It's been a couple of years since I reread the book. But I don't think that angle wasn't mentioned in the book, was it? I didn't think it was that I remembered.
No, it was. But in the book, from what I remember, it was a secluded area where the elites would go, and basically and they basically were partaking in debauchery.
Right.
And there was murders and rapes and all kinds of stuff that was happening there. And over time, it built up into its own thing, and then the hotel had its own spiritual identity that was capturing ghosts.
They're talking about Stephen King stories.
Yeah, we go to the restroom. Hold on.
Man, again?
Yeah. I'm drinking alcohol.
Camp Guy said apt people, yeah, Dedication, It, The Stand, My Pretty Pony, King's short stories are great. Camp Guy says Dedication is the sickest Stephen King short story. I do not remember that one. What book is that one in? Because I don't remember if I read that or not. Apt Pupil, they did make a movie of that. And I remember seeing it and it just being kind of like mid-tier Stephen. Because, you know, and I've written about this on my on my blog as well. I'm like fascinated by Stephen King adaptations, and there's been a lot of them. I mean, he's written a lot of stuff, obviously, but it seems like most of them are kind of like, I know that a lot of people like have a perception that it's like, oh, Stephen King adaptations, they all suck, stuff like that, but they don't. A lot of them are actually really good. A couple of them are like pretty fucking terrible, but most of them are just kind of like okay. The thing about Stephen King is that he's written so much that there's adaptations of his stuff that I didn't even know existed until like recently. Like for example, I accidentally came across this movie. I don't even remember how I came across it. It was a couple years ago. And the movie was called Mercy, and it had the kid that played Carl on Walking Dead. What's that kid's name? I can't remember what his name is. But he was in it. And it was based on the Stephen King story, Grandma. Do you guys remember that one? I think it wasn't in Night Shift. I think it was in Skeleton Crew. And I was like, I didn't even know they made a fucking movie version. They added a bunch of shit because, like, the story isn't that long. But, you know, like, the last third of the movie is, like, pretty much straight up like the short story is. But it's like, so that just goes to show, like, how much shit Stephen King has written. That it's like, they've made adaptations of his stuff that I didn't even know that they adapted it. You know what I mean? And it wasn't named the same thing as the story, so I didn't initially realize that it was based on the Stephen King story. And I'm just like, oh, holy shit. He also does that thing where, I guess he still does this, where he has, like, on his website, he has what he calls, quote-unquote, dollar babies, and you can actually buy the rights to, he has, like, a big list of, like, his stories and stuff, and you can buy the rights to them for $1 and make a movie out of them. As long as you're not, he does it for, like, student filmmakers, you know what I mean? Like, you can't make $1 million movie out of it, obviously. He's doing it for people that are learning the craft and stuff like that. So he's like, you can adapt one of my stories for $1, you know, as long as you don't, like, make a huge profit.
I pretty much liked everything I read of him until I got to Tommy Knockers. I didn't like that one.
I didn't like Tommy Knockers either.
I stopped reading him after that.
I also did not like Dreamcatcher. Most of the books of his that I've read, I usually, like, kind of like them, or they're just like, oh, they're okay. I very rarely have read one that I actively didn't like. I did not like Tommy Knockers. I did not like Dreamcatcher, and the movie they made of that was just hilarious, but really bad. And I didn't like, isn't this interesting? I didn't really like the book of Dr. Sleep. I liked the movie a lot better.
Yeah, a lot of people talk bullshit about Dr. Sleep. Saad in Saudi Arabia, he loves the fucking Shining so much that he's afraid to watch Dr. Sleep because he heard that it sucked. No, man. You want to see Dr. Sleep, the director's cut, the full long edition? Yeah, some of it ends up happening in the fucking Overlook, but it's handled well. I like the Overlook scenes. Didn't you?
Yeah.
I thought it was handled well.
I thought they did a good job.
Yeah.
And honestly, I liked...
And the dude that played fucking the ghost of fucking... The dad, what's his name? Jack.
Yeah.
Jack Torrance is in it, his ghost. And the dude that plays him nails it.
I also liked they got Alex Esso to play Wendy. And I thought she was really good. Yeah. Well, and I mean, if you guys watch my my Flickers of Fear, I just talked about her big breakout role, which was in Starry Eyes. And I like that she was that she played Wendy, because she kind of looks like her, and she kind of has like all the mannerisms.
We saw the theatrical release in the movies, and I thought it was mediocre. That was okay. There were certain problems with the theatrical release, but when you see the director's cut or the full length version of it, it's a lot better. It's a lot better because they cut stuff out for time, and when they cut shit out, it kind of made the little black girl character just kind of like, why is she in this movie?
Abra, yeah.
Abra, like, why is she in this movie? There's really nothing much.
Whereas in the book, she's a huge character.
In the movie, she's like, in the theatrical cut of the movie, she's like, there's not enough in there to really justify.
Like half the book is about her. It's like from her point of view.
Yeah, but in the full length version, that her character makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
And that was the thing about the movie that I didn't like. Because that character, I never read the book, that character seemed like it was just shoehorned in there.
Right.
Like, why is she in there? Well, they don't really need that character. She's just in there.
But like I said, she's like a
okay.
major...
Yeah.
Yeah, in the book, she's like a major character.
Yeah.
It seemed like with the movie, they were trying to make it more like, oh, this is going to be a sequel to the movie, The Shining, so they wanted to have more of that going on.
More of the Danny in there.
Whereas, like I said, if you read the book, it's probably like half Danny and half Abra.
Right.
So.
And in the full-length edit of it, it's more... If that's the way the book is, I haven't read it, then it's more like the book.
Right.
The full-length edit. But I liked it. And when they go to the fucking Overlook, it didn't disappoint.
They actually did do a good job
They
of
did a good job
recreating that.
Yeah. And the Overlook, of course, is worse than it was when you saw it last.
I mean, I was
worse.
worried about it too because The Shining is like one of my favorite. I mean, The Shining and The Thing are like my two favorite movies of all time. So, and I've seen them both probably like 100 times each. So I'm always kind of like worried that it wasn't.
I got the Blu-ray of Dr. Sleep.
Yeah. But it's like, it's nothing's going to be as good as The Shining. I mean, that was like lightning in a bottle. But I was like pleasantly surprised. And I read the book, Dr. Sleep. I didn't love the book. I didn't hate it. But I was just kind of like, you know what I mean? I wasn't super into it. But I actually kind of liked the movie better. But other than that, I mean, I don't know. And like I said, I think I mentioned that when I read a kind of more recent-ish Stephen King book, which is called Revival, which I think came out in 2014, I want to say, maybe later. I fucking loved that. Yeah. Because I hadn't read a lot of his newer stuff, and because I lost track, you know what I mean? Because the dude just keeps writing and writing and writing, and I'm like, holy crap, dude, I have like other books I gotta read too, chill out. But it's like, I found it for like $5, like in a used bookstore. I was like, holy shit, I never even heard of this one, because the bitch just keeps writing. And so I read it, and I was like, wow, this is fantastic. Like one of his newer books. I really wish they'd make a movie out of that. That'd be great.
I liked pretty much everything I read from Stephen King except Tommyknockers.
I didn't like Tommyknockers.
I didn't read anything after that really. After that I joined the army. Didn't have time to read books anymore. And then after my head injury, I hated reading. Fucking my eyes kept jumping around over the page. I can do it now. It's just I just don't really have the patience, and then I forget. I forget that I'm halfway through a book. Something else will distract me. But, like, I still haven't finished Billy Idol's fucking... Yeah,
I bought him, like, Billy Idol's biography, like, a long time ago.
Yeah, I got about halfway through it, and I forget.
And we were in Books A Million the other day, and they actually had Rob Halford's autobiography. And I was like, oh, man, we should get that. Yeah. I mean, I'll read it, even if you don't. I want to read it. So, anyway, the thing is with Stephen King is there's, like, 3 or 4 things I don't like about him. All right. One, his dialogue, you can read when you read it in a book, it makes sense. But if you can actually imagine somebody actually talking like that, it works in a book, but not in a movie. Yeah. Which, like I said, that's why if you're gonna adapt a Stephen King thing, you kind of have to make some tweaks to it. But just because of the differences in the medium.
And another thing about him is that Stephen King suffers from magical Negro syndrome.
A little bit, yeah.
And that's something that's talked about a lot in fucking certain kinds of literature, all right? That's where every black character in the book has magical powers, all right? And he's not the only one that does that.
A lot of writers do that.
It's just him. He does, he's got that.
I mean, I'll give him a pass on Halloran from The Shining.
That's a great character.
Because I love that character.
There's so many of those characters.
But yeah, like he did it in The Green Mile. He did it, he does
The Stand.
Yeah.
He did it in every one of his books.
Yeah, he does it a lot.
If there's a black person
like I said, he's not the only one that does it.
They're going to be psychic.
They do it to Native Americans. Too.
Yeah, Native American, right. And then another thing is that fucking drove me crazy about Stephen King is that he didn't know shit about guns. He'd talk about guns, but fucking he doesn't know anything about them. So he describes guns that never existed, describes guns that don't work that way, names guns like a Ruger 44 Magnum automatics. There's no such thing as that. It would just drive me crazy. Like, what the fuck? What gun is that? That doesn't exist, you know. Because he just pulls random things. And instead, he said that soldiers were shooting at each other with full auto recoilless rifles, which means that he doesn't know what a recoilless rifle is. You know, a recoilless rifle is kind of like a bazooka.
I mean, he's usually pretty good at asking people about shit, so I don't know why he doesn't or either that or the person he asks about it doesn't know what they're talking about it either.
In The Stand, he said that fucking during the pandemic, soldiers were going rogue and fighting each other in the streets, fucking shooting each other up with fucking recoilless rifles with full auto fire. A recoilless rifle is a bazooka, not an assault rifle. And it's kind of like a bazooka. You take it down, large 40 millimeter or above, 90 millimeter fucking looks like a damn artillery round, and you put it into a hollow tube, and you fire it, and then it's equal and opposite reactions. Half the explosion goes out the back, the other half of the explosion chucks the round out the front. And it's just a way of lobbing a big explosive shell out of a man-portable weapon. And because it's equal and opposite reactions and it's an unlocked breach, you can do it. You can launch one of those big things without it blowing you across the fucking street when it happens. That's what a recoilless rifle is. But they're single shot. You know, they're not machine guns. So you just know what he's talking about. Drive you crazy.
A couple people have recommended that I watch Stephen King Book Club on YouTube. I'm going to have to look that up. Okay. Also, Ben says, I read Elevation a while ago. It was a sequel to Thinner. Interestingly, I just finished reading Elevation a couple of days ago because I found it at Books A Million, like in the bargain section. I didn't see it so much as a sequel to Thinner, though, because Thinner, that was about a dude who ran over a gypsy and they cursed him and he just started losing weight. No matter how much what he ate.
It was a great book.
Elevation is not really a horror novel. It's kind of more a drama with like sci-fi elements. He actually dedicated it to Richard Matheson, so I'm assuming that he was making, because it was kind of a similar setup to Shrinking Man, the Richard Matheson novel, where the dude, obviously shrank. But great book, by the way, and it was made into a great movie. But it was more like he was losing weight, but he wasn't looking any smaller, if that makes any sense. And there was a thing too, like where he would have like tons of clothes on with like all these coins and shit in his pockets, and he would get on the scale, but he would always weigh the same. Like he always looked the same, but he was like losing weight like the whole time, even though he didn't look like he was losing weight. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it was like a metaphorical kind of thing. But it wasn't a horror novel. And it says a novel on it, but it's technically a novella. I mean, it's pretty short. I read it like in one afternoon, like in an hour or something. So I don't know if I'd call it a sequel to Thinner. It's not really the same thing. But he's kind of coming at it from the same angle. It's still like a weight loss thing, but different, Ben said, didn't the guy in Elevation live in the same house as the attorney from Thinner? The doctor knew about the case and discussed it with him. Not that I remember. Shit, I just read that a couple days ago, and you'd think I would have picked up on that. But I couldn't remember the name of the guy from Thinner, so I don't know.
But I will hand it to King. He's an American legend of horror. He's a legend. He wrote a lot of good modern American horror. But I have to say, Straub wrote some good shit too.
I like Peter Straub.
Yeah, he wrote some good shit.
He wrote some stuff. I mean, I really like his novel Ghost Story. The movie is pretty good, that came out in 1981. But the thing about it, I love that movie. I'm not saying that. But the novel Ghost Story is so much more complicated that, I mean, they had to leave 3/4 of that book out.
Straub wrote The Watcher too, didn't he? The Watchers?
No, that was Dean Koontz.
Dean Koontz, that's right. Yeah, I remember. I read.
I don't like Dean Koontz.
He was pretty good. I liked him.
He sold almost as many books as King.
Yeah, I liked him.
They don't make a lot of adaptations of his work.
Koontz, that's right.
They did make The Watchers, which was okay. If you haven't seen Odd Thomas with Anton Yelchin, that came out in 2013, 2014. That's actually really good. But most of the adaptations they make of Dean Koontz's stuff were like really not good. And I have read a few of Dean Koontz's novels, and I'm just not into them. They're too...
They're kind of
formulaic. Yeah, that was the word I was going to say.
When you're a young guy, though, that kind of helps you get through the book for some reason.
Yeah.
And I remember reading The Watchers and loving it.
I liked that one. I think that was his best one.
The doctor. You had the dog that was trained as the scout, and behind it was like a Yeti. That was the monster. The Yeti would track you down and kill you. It was like a military weapon that had gotten out. I thought it was pretty cool. Was it a cyborg, too?
See, I don't even remember.
I don't remember.
It's been so long since I read that. Like I said, I think
there's a psychic link between the dog and the fucking Yeti.
Wow, you'd think I would remember something like that.
You don't remember that?
No.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, his books didn't really make that much of an impression.
It was some kind of U.S. Army experimental weapon that got out. And it was basically a dog and a Bigfoot. Basically. There was a psychic link between the two.
How did they come up with this shit?
And the dog was kind of like the scout. It would go out but it was friendly. And,
the friendly Bigfoot dog.
Yeah, and then the Bigfoot could see through the dog's eyes and know when to attack and shit. Yeah. Sure. It was like the killer module. That's how I remembered it. It's been a long time since I read it. Might be a little bit different, but that's how I remembered it.
I don't know.
It's kind of like the Predator in a way.
I might revisit some of his shit one of these days. But, I mean, like I said, he sold like a bajillion books. And it's weird that they don't make as many adaptations of his work as they do.
It's just going through me.
Oh, yeah. I was like, holy shit. He's been in the bathroom like fucking 10 times already. Yeah, the actor from Odd Thomas, poor guy, he died horribly. Yeah, he died like in a freak accident. And that is such a good movie. I recommend it to... I wrote about it, like, I think I did a video about it not too long ago, because I heard about it from somewhere, and I was like, oh my god, like, maybe this is the one good Dean Koontz adaptation. And it's not... It's kind of a horror movie, but I think if you liked The Frighteners, the Peter Jackson movie, then you'll probably really dig Odd Thomas. It's a similar premise and, like, a similar tone. You know what I mean? But... I'm not going to say it's a ripoff because the book Odd Thomas came out in a long time ago, like before The Frighteners came out, I think. So, but it's not the same, but it's like a similar kind of setup where it's just kind of like a guy that can see ghosts and is kind of like fighting them and shit like that. You know what I mean? Let's see where the red fern grows. His books always had a yellow lab. Did they really? Yeah, Ben's talking about Elevation. The lesbians next door cursed him. That was my take. That angle hadn't even occurred to me, but maybe they did. Maybe they did. I don't know. Like, I was gonna review it, but then I liked the book, but I was just kind of like, well, it's not really horror. You know what I mean? It's not really horror at all. Like, it's kind of like a drama, like a comedy drama with like a sci-fi angle to it. So I was like, so maybe I won't. And it's pretty short, too. So I didn't really, like, think I was going to bother. I mean, I don't necessarily always do straight-up horror because, I mean, the last book review I did was, like, a murder mystery. But, you know, I do thrillers and stuff, too. But Elevation, I just felt like it wasn't enough of a horror novel for me to, like, justify it. So I probably won't review it. But the book I'm reading now, I will review eventually. But I'm not done with it yet. It's another, Grady Hendrix. So I've done several of his books already. I love Grady Hendrix. But this one, I don't hear too much about this one. I think this was one of his earlier ones called We Sold Our Souls. It's about like a heavy metal band.
Wasn't that from A Boy and His Dog? No, Boy and His Dog, which I have Boy and His Dog on Blu-ray, which of course is fucking bootleg because nobody owns that movie. That shit. Boy and His Dog is too subversive to be owned by anybody. Sometimes you can find it on Blu-ray, guys. On eBay, guys burning Boy and His Dog Blu-rays, and they'll give it to you in a package and everything. I bought one. It's worth it. Boy and His Dog was John Johnson in a post-apocalyptic movie, kind of like Mad Max, and he had a dog that I think is some kind of genetically engineered dog with some cybernetic features in it, and the dog is like an ex-police dog. And I guess it must be very old. Maybe they don't die of old age. I don't know. But it was something from before the apocalypse happened. And its whole thing is that it has sensors on it. And Don Johnson, who's a young guy with a fucking bolt-action rifle, just like Johnny Reb, kind of. The whole purpose of the dog is to sniff out girls.
It's a girl sniffing dog.
It's a girl sniffing out dog. And Don Johnson basically fucking attacks him and kills him after he sexually does his thing with him, which is like normal behavior in the apocalypse. And it's a good movie.
We reviewed it a long time ago.
Yeah, it's a good movie. And what ends up happening to Don Johnson and his dog is eventually they get abducted by a subterranean cult that's still living in the 1950s. And they're going to use him as breeding stock for some of their females. And that's where the trouble begins. It's a good movie. I don't want to fucking... You can probably see it for free on YouTube.
I'm sure it's out there somewhere.
Yeah.
It's kind of a cult...
It's a good movie.
It's kind of a cult classic.
Yeah.
I've seen it turn up on Tubi. I don't know if it's on there anymore, but I think I've seen it on there from time to time.
Highly subversive. It's kind of like an American Mad Max movie, but it doesn't have car chases. It's all on foot for the most part. And very morally gray.
John Gora says, wasn't there a Kuntz adaptation with Pierce Brosnan about a cult of some sort?
Yeah, sounds familiar.
Yeah, but what the fuck was the name of that thing?
Yeah.
That one was alright. I don't remember if I read the book it was based on, though. Like I said, I read probably like 2 or 3 Dean Koontz books, and I was just kind of like, it's not for me. They're good, but they're not... I don't know. It's like the book equivalent of like a popcorn flick. It's kind of like you watch it and it's just like every chapter, and at least this was my perception. I haven't read a lot of his stuff. So it's like every chapter ended with this big cliffhanger. Oh my God, what's going to happen next? And then it just seemed very affected and it seemed very formulaic and I wasn't about it. So I didn't read any more of his after that. But it just occurred to me that he had written so many books and it's like they really haven't done that many adaptations. And I feel the same way about Peter Straub. Now, Peter Straub, he's kind of a different situation because his writing is a lot more literary. But he's written some like fucking kick-ass books that I think would make really good movies. Like, why didn't they ever make Coco into a movie? Because that was a great fucking book. I really liked that a lot. But... he's written like some really good shit. He's written some like real weird shit too, but like some of his stuff, I think I did a review not too long ago about like a novella that he had written, which was called Mrs. God. And I really dug that until the end. I liked the end, but I just felt like it needed to be fleshed out. I said this needs to be a novel. It seemed like it was too short because I really, really liked the build up, and then it seemed like the end of it, I was just like, oh, everything went to banana pants like at the end, and I was like, and then it just ended, and I was like, all right, so that's what we're doing. Okay.
Hugo brings up something good. Read what Hugo said.
Where is that?
Very bottom.
Boy and His Dog reminds me of movies like Cherry 2000, Alien from LA, and Tank Girl. Yeah, it's kind of like all the same genre. Yeah. It's very similar to Cherry 2000. If you like Cherry 2000, you probably like Boy and His Dog too.
Great movie, yeah. Oh, not as dark.
And Alien from LA, which I haven't
seen that one.
I've only seen it on MST. That's the one with Kathy Ireland.
Haven't seen that.
Where her dad's an archaeologist. See, I've seen this movie a bunch of times because it was on Mystery Science Theater, and that's actually one of my favorite episodes because the movie is so. I love the '80s ones; they're like so funny. She's looking for her dad, who's an archaeologist, and she falls in a hole, and there's like an underground civilization, which is like New Wave Australia.
Okay. Yeah. And I gotta see that one. That sounds good.
I want to show.
All right.
I'm just going to show you the MST version because it's like super funny.
I agree with what Hugo's saying, but I would also throw the Mad Max in there too. It's like that.
Oh, Dead End Drive-In. Yeah, that's another one that's like that.
Yeah.
That's another one that's like that.
Yeah,
we reviewed that one. I don't love that movie, but it is along those same lines.
Yeah, Boy and His Dog does have some humorous angles to it. But fucking Don Johnson's playing a horrible dude. He's just fucking horrible, and he's the main character.
Yeah.
But he's living in a fucked up world. Real fucked up. He doesn't know any better. He's a savage, basically.
Which is interesting. You didn't really see... You see a lot of movies like that nowadays, like where the main character is like a morally gray, like or a terrible person. But I feel like they didn't do that as much back then. So I think that's maybe why that stood out.
And he's brought up Cherry 2000, another classic. Cherry 2000 is better now than it was. It's aged really well.
I didn't like it at the time, but I like it better now.
Yeah, at the time you're like,
It aged well.
Yeah, but you see it now and you're like, oh, yeah, that's cool. That's cool the way it was. Melody Griffith plays kind of like a Mad Max chick can go out into the damn wasteland.
She's like a guide or like a
guide.
bounty hunter person.
She's got a badass 65 Mustang and that's meant for the fucking wasteland. And she takes this greenhorn dude from fucking the city. This is post-apocalyptic to go find the robot warehouse so he could get the chip to revive his Cherry 2000 model sex bot, which is his girlfriend.
Yeah.
And it's a good flick. It's got some of the cast of Blade Runners in it. And out in the desert, there's these post-apocalyptic tribes, I guess is a good way. Each one kind of like has its own thing. Like one of them is a bunch of like 1960s golfers living out on a damn 60s style motel in the middle, a motel complex or hotel complex in the middle of the fucking desert, and they're like an open wife swapping kind of cult, and they're all kind of yuppie-ish. That was fucking weird. They're some of the main characters. They're like the bad guys. They're not in Mad Max like the roadkill guys and all the fucking, fucking what was his name? Fucking Humongous. They're the bad guys. And this one, it's a bunch of people who look like yuppies, sex cult yuppies.
Which seems like closer to the truth. Probably.
Yeah, that's what it really were. Just kind of wearing golf pants and shit.
Always avoid people wearing golf pants.
Yeah, and shorts.
Under all circumstances.
But it was funny. They looked real fucking kind of like yuppie-ish, but they were fucking run by, their fucking leader was a psychopath and shit. It's a very creative flick, and Melanie Griffith was in it before she got real famous, and she plays a sexy character. I thought she was hot as shit when I was in my late teens and early 20s. She had bright red hair.
Because I feel like people think
pants
she's Cherry 2000. She's not.
No, she's a hunter.
Yeah, Cherry 2000 is the sex bot. They're trying to find the piece for the sex bot.
Yeah. And
so that's not her name or nothing.
She had a badass rifle. It was a stainless Mini 14 with a suppressor on it, with a Falcon with a folding like the AC 556. If you guys gun guys know, she had that. She had a fucking Dragon fucking M47 fucking wire guided missile, which I ended up shooting those when I was in the Army. I was a Dragon gunner for a while. It was a good flick. Good flick. I liked it.
Zach says, okay, but what's the legit worst movie you've ever seen?
Oh, there's so many.
Like I said, I am an MST3K veteran.
Yeah.
So there's been some bad movies on there. I think probably the worst one that they did was Castle of Fu Manchu, which actually had Christopher Lee in it, but that was its only redeeming quality. Other than that, it was confusing as shit. I never had any idea what was going on, and it just pissed me off. However, I think probably the worst movie they did was Blood Waters of Dr. Z, also known as Zat, which was actually filmed in Florida and is mostly a schlubby, balding, middle-aged dude shuffling around.
Yeah.
For about 45 minutes.
You see, bad movies are real easy to make because all you got to do to make a bad movie is make something boring. If it's boring, it's going to be fucking bad. The more boring it is, the worse it is. All right. The trick is to make a bad movie and it's fucking awesome. And for me, that would be Velocipaster. Okay, because I can't even say that that's a bad movie. I got to say that's a great movie.
I love that movie.
Yeah,
like unabashedly, I love that movie.
Velocipasters. It is what it is. They knew what it was, and they knew exactly how to fuck with you. But if I would say the worst movie I've ever seen would be Blackenstein.
Oh yeah, that was pretty bad.
And the reason why Blackenstein was bad is because it was disappointing.
Right. Well, I mean, we can't all be as awesome as Blackula.
Exactly.
Or Scream Blackula.
I fucking love the Blackula series, and I was going,
yeah, those two movies are fucking awesome. Like, legitimately awesome.
Hell yeah. Fucking, they're real good movies. I got them both on Blu-ray. So I said, well, let me check out Blackenstein. This might be pretty good. No, it sucked. It sucked because it was boring.
It was awful.
Just boring, yeah.
Yeah, it was just... I mean, there's worse movies made. Look, watch Shitcase Cinema.
Yeah.
That dude digs up... I don't even know where the fuck he finds most of this shit.
There's a lot of bad action movies and sound.
He did one called Things, which is a Canadian movie, and I've never seen the whole thing all the way through. Like, I don't think I could sit through the whole thing. That just looked like a couple of hosers sat down and it was like, we're gonna make a movie one weekend, and like nothing happens, and it's terrible, and it's like they don't, they didn't film it right. It's like, I don't even know what the fuck is going on. There's ants. I don't even know. So there was that. But of the worst movies that I've seen, like I said, I think Blood Waters of Dr. Z is bad just because it has a great premise. Like, a mad scientist, for whatever reason, decides he's going to turn himself into a fish and therefore take over the world, because that's how you do that. And then he ends up as like this kind of fish monster. But like I said, it's mostly just like really boring. Like, not a lot happens. It's just like a dude shuffling around most of the time. But I will say, too, that the films... Ed Wood gets a lot of shit, but at least Ed Wood's movies are so, like, bafflingly inept that they're really entertaining. But nobody really talks about how shitty Coleman Francis's movies are. And I think he only made 3, which were The Skydivers, Red Zone Cuba... What's the other one? Beast of Yucca Flats?
Yeah.
Man. What those are a slog to sit through. They did all of them on Mystery Science Theater, and they actually did a good job with them. Like, they are actually made them entertaining. But I can't imagine, like, sitting through them without the riffing. I would probably just, like, doze off, I'm sure.
Yeah. You can see Blackenstein with the riffing. I think that's not MST. That's Riff Tracks does that, right?
I don't know. Did they?
I think it was Riff Tracks that did.
I don't remember Riff Tracks doing Blackenstein. Thank you, Aaron. Aaron sent us a super chat.
Yeah, what Darren
said. Hey, I'll watch you at work tomorrow. Monthly tip. Thank you very much. We appreciate that.
We love those tips, bro.
Yeah, Beast of Yucca Flats I've seen, and that had Tor Johnson in it, which brings me back to the Haunting episode where the guy looked like Tor Johnson. Yeah, he was in that too. There were some scenes in that I thought were funny, but it's like mostly, I don't know. Like Coleman Francis's movies all looked like depression on film. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just. What was the other one that he did that was like had fucking John Carradine in it?
I don't know, but if y'all haven't seen, I don't know if some of you might be new listeners. I talked about this before. I think we've actually done reviews on them. You can see the reviews here. If you haven't seen Blackula and Scream, Blackula Scream, the sequel, see them. They're good.
I mean, I would recommend those to like any horror fans because those are legit good movies.
Yeah, it's a ridiculous title. You go, what the fuck? What are you talking about? Over the top title it is, but
like you think it's going to be super cheesy, but it's not. It's good. They're real good.
Real good vampire movies. They're well written. The acting is pretty good. The stories are good. The guy who plays Blackula, his real name is Waldi. But Dracula called him Blackula, and that's why it's in. What was that guy's name? Fucking that actor.
William Marshall.
William Marshall. That's right. The M5 computer.
Yeah, he was on Star Trek.
Yeah. He's great in it.
That dude's badass. I love his voice.
Yeah, and the second one is really good too. I think it takes place in New Orleans, and it has a lot of fucking voodoo.
Voodoo, yeah. Which I really dug that. I like that.
Yeah, and those two movies kind of inspired a lot of Anne Rice's books when it came to vampire culture. How would you live as a vampire? Would you go out to the club? Well, all that's talked about. Although, in the version that I have, a lot of shit was cut out of it. I want to find the full edit. Where he said, let's go out to the club, and fucking, he goes, you will not do that, you know, but you'll bring them back here. And they cut that part out, you know. He goes, so what, I'm just sitting here, I'm a slave? And he goes, yes. And he goes, I'm your slave? Yes, you're my slave. And that was fucking awesome. And it's because Mama Waldy was basically kind of symbolically a slave master. That's what fucking, and he was against the slave trade. That's how he got turned into a vampire. It's a great fucking flick, all right? Both the two flicks. Fucking... Vampires made slaves. They were slave masters. If they fucking bit somebody and turned them into a vampire, it was a slave vampire, which that's actually kind of addressed in the movie. But there were also slave revolts, which that's talked about in Scream, back in the Scream too. It's a great flicks, and that movie had a spiritual successor, which was Eddie Murphy's movie, Vampire in Brooklyn, which I got that too on Blu-ray.
I actually quite.
And I like that movie.
I like that movie too.
It does borrow some from Dracula a bit about showing up in a boat, you know, that kind of stuff. But it's a good flick. I liked it, and they never really did a sequel to it. It bombed at the theater. People didn't want to see it. Sucked, but it was a good movie.
Sebastian brings up Count Yorga.
Yeah,
I've actually been wanting to do the Count Yorga movies.
Haven't seen it in a long time.
Because I saw them on one of our streaming services the other day. I'm like, oh shit, we should do this because I don't think we've done it. John Gore said Killer Shrews is a great bad movie. MST did that one too. And all I remember about Killer Shrews is that the quote unquote Killer Shrews were actually clearly all dogs with carpet samples like stuck on them, and they were all like real friendly and stuff, which I thought was very funny.
They were being friendly,
right?
Like dogs do. Huh?
And so
why do I have carpet samples on me?
Why am I covered with carpet? Oh well,
what am I supposed to do?
I'm a very good boy. Can I have a bone or something? Yeah. But yeah, so it was like that. And I remember like long stretches of the movie with like a bunch of people standing around at a bar drinking.
Yeah.
Like in the house. So I remember drinking and dogs with carpet samples. That's like pretty much all I remember from that movie. Like and wasn't the dude from Beverly Hillbillies in that shit?
Which one was that?
Wasn't Jethro from Beverly Hillbillies in that movie?
I don't know, man.
I haven't seen it in a while. Because that's like an episode. I mean, the MST episodes, I've watched all of them like multiple times. But that's one I don't revisit that much. And it's because that movie is so fucking boring. Like, that's one of the reasons that I don't watch Castle of Fu Manchu all that much. There's like, they're still funny, like, because the riffing makes them funny. But sometimes the movies are just too much for me to take. You know what I mean? It's just too... They're too slow, or I actually prefer... The best episodes of MST for me are either like the 70s movies or the 80s movies that are just like so cheesy and like over the top that they're just like super fun. Like, some of my favorite episodes are like fucking... what was the one with the... that was... It was like a TV pilot. What was it called? The Gemini Man or something like that with Ben Murphy or whatever. And Riding with Death. And that was like from the 70s, and it was just all trucker lingo, and it was just like that fucking Jim Stafford was in there, like that rednecky like country singer dude, and that was just a delight, like, because that movie was just like so cheesy and like so bad. So I love all that kind of stuff. I loved Space Mutiny, which is like a weird South African cheapy sci-fi movie, and it was just had this bodybuilder dude in it, and like everybody had aerobics gear on, and it was just like so fucking funny. And so then there was like this cult of like Stevie Nicks looking bitches, and it's just I was just dying. So I love that kind of stuff. And Soul Taker, that was another one like from the 80s.
We finished the show, and there's more people listening now than they were listening before. Go ahead and send the super chat, Steve. There's more of you now.
I mean, might as well.
Go ahead and send a super chat.
Yeah, but
bonus show.
And Soul Taker, which has not Martin Sheen, but the relative of Martin Sheen. What's that motherfucker's name?
Emilio Estevez?
No, the other Estevez. Joe Estevez.
Okay.
Joe Estevez.
All right.
Who's in like a lot of... And he was in Werewolf as well, which is another good episode. So like I said, I really like the 70s and 80s ones. Those are my favorite ones. Yeah. Like the 50s sci-fi ones are good too, but like I said, a lot of the movies are just like, chubby white people standing around in offices talking.
Yeah.
So, and it's hard to make that entertaining. They do their best, but somebody said... Let me see where it was. Jeffy Hart says, thank God for MST3K and Riff Tracks. I wonder what creators of those bad movies would think of people legit hacking them for entertainment. Yeah. Well, they have had some people, because they're such a cultural touchstone, they have actually had some filmmakers that contacted them and said, hey, can you do our movie? Yeah. I think probably the most famous example of that was Time Chasers, which was made by a bunch of people in Vermont, and was about a guy, like a high school science teacher, I think he was, and he invented a time machine like out of a biplane or something. Yeah. Well, it was like a biplane that had like a computer. It was like on a floppy disk. He invented a time machine with a floppy disk.
Yeah, I remember that one.
So, you know what I mean? And it's not a terrible movie. I mean, it's cheesy.
There's worse.
There's way worse. I mean, at least it's entertaining and shit happens and stuff. I think it was made in the mid 90s or early 90s.
Without Riff Tracks, no one would know Manos Hands of Fate.
Right, without MST, because that was one of their most famous
MST
episodes. I think that movie would have been totally forgotten about if they hadn't done, because that was one of their most iconic early episodes.
Yeah, and it's a great movie when people are riffing on it. Mm-hmm. I was fucking we saw that shit live on Riff Tracks.
Yeah, Riff Tracks Live did a version of it.
At the theater, all right?
And we were dying.
I was fucking...
My face
crawling
hurt.
the fucking walls, man.
My face hurt afterward. I was laughing so hard.
Funny.
I think that... because we go to Riff Tracks Live, they have them like a few times a year. So whenever they have them at the theater, we go and see them. I think the Manos one and Birdemic were the best ones. Oh
yeah, man, Birdemic blew my fucking mind.
Man, they really like fucking reamed Birdemic.
I would like to see a Neil Breen flick.
They should do. I wonder have they done one. Well, because like I said, they don't. There's if you have Tubi, which is free, they have a fuck ton of Riff Tracks on there.
Yeah.
And they've done a bunch of movies. I mean, I've seen probably most of the ones that are on Tubi.
Yeah, the Filipino guy that did fucking Birdemic.
Yeah.
His shit's terrible, okay?
It's
terrible.
Just
fucking terrible. It'd be unwatchable without Riff Tracks riffing on it. But who might be worse because the movies are a little more coherent and they actually take themselves a little bit more seriously would be Neil Breen. And he stars in every one of his movies as just a universal sex symbol.
And he's like always usually some kind of like Messiah figure.
He's a Messiah figure that's come from
really
another
something.
planet. All the girls love him, and when you see the dude, he's like a very, very average middle-aged man, very average, and it's just
maybe he's got
hilarious.
magical Sting Lingam powers.
Yeah, it's like Sting sitting up there, sitting in a lotus position, women just throwing themselves upon his erect lingam. To fucking getting that.
He's got them all stacked up, you know?
Yeah, got them stacked up one on top of the other.
Just like one of those toddler toys that has that thing that you put like the little multicolored donut things on. But except it's women on one dude's dick.
Fucking Sting, man.
So, you're welcome for that image, by the way.
Yeah. Although I fuck with Sting. Every time I talk about Sting.
Sting's cool.
I like Sting, yeah.
I do too.
And he could act. And I think he was mostly taking the piss.
See, that was always the impression.
I think he was fucking with people.
I think he was just being like, yeah. I don't think he takes himself all that seriously.
Spiritual ass motherfucker. Come on.
Right. I just think he's being funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I would be very surprised if Riff Tracks hadn't done some Neil Breen. You know? Because they've done so many movies. They don't just do like shitty ones. They do like big budget ones too. Yeah. But usually you have to pay for those. But how it works, if you don't know, is that you go to their website and you download their audio track. And then if you have the movie at home, like you can watch the movie at home and you can sync up the audio track. You download it if it's like a couple of bucks or something. And then like you can watch along like with but sometimes like on Tubi and sometimes on their YouTube channel, they have some that are already synced up, like movies that are not, you know, copyrighted or anything like that. So there's a bunch of them on Tubi though, including, I don't remember if Birdemic is, I think the Birdemic Live one is on there actually, now that I'm thinking about it, and the Manos Live might be on there too, because some of their live shows are archived on Tubi. They definitely have the dude that did Birdemic, James Nguyen, that's what his name is. He did another movie called, what the fuck was the name of that? Replicas or something like that. And he did one, and that movie is also baffling. Not quite as batshit as Birdemic was, like not quite as crazy, or because it's more like a sci-fi relationship drama.
Yeah, his name is Gwen.
It's
starting with a G.
Well, it's that name.
Gwen, G-U-E.
Yeah, but I think you just pronounce that Nguyen or something like that. I can't remember. Like,
well, one thing about the dude,
you don't pronounce it the way it looks.
He's not Western, you know. He's an Eastern guy from the Philippines, and he has this strange. He's got this strange fucking kind of like preconceived notion about the way Westerners date. Okay. And what white girls do. Most of it revolves around sitting on people's laps. You always see.
He must have a fetish for that or something.
Some white couple.
Ooh, did you hear that?
Yeah, and the girl is sitting on his lap, straddling him, sitting on his lap, if I remember correctly. Or is it just sitting on laps? That's what dating is, sitting on laps.
Well, the whole weird thing about that scene was the dude was like laying on the couch, and and they weren't like having sex or anything. They were fully clothed. Yeah, and they weren't doing anything. She was just like sitting there.
Sitting on that. And then another thing is that he believes that white dudes meet women by seeing them in public, like in a mall, and then following them home and knocking on their doors. I saw you at the mall. You will get
I'm calling the police.
You will get your ass shot. Okay, if you follow a woman home,
or at the very least, get your ass arrested.
Yeah, very least, yeah. In the
South, you should for sure get maced.
In the South, you could probably get shot.
You would probably get shot. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you pulled that.
Come at you. Who are you? I remember you. Pow, 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 pow.
Yeah. Who the fuck are you, freak?
Why
are you following me?
Only a rapist is gonna do that.
That's what I'm saying. What the fuck normal person like follows you home, like follows you to your house?
You are a fucking crazy motherfucker.
Yeah, that's
to follow a woman.
That is not okay.
Across town to her house.
I just wanted to tell you how beautiful you are. Blam, blam, blam.
Mm-hmm. I saw you in the mall a half hour ago. Followed you home.
I mean, pretty much.
You're gonna get shot.
And I mean, kind of rightly so, really.
When cops show up, what happened? He followed me all the way from the mall, this motherfucker, trying to get in my house.
Holy shit.
They're like, oh, okay, yeah. That's a rapist. Okay. Go about your business, baby.
Well, you saved us all a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty much. So yeah, there's that.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, new one.
Yeah, something like that.
I gotta see more of his shit. That motherfucker's out.
If you want me to, I'll show you that other one that was on, because they did a couple of his movies like on Riff Tracks.
Yeah.
And I think all of them are on. I think they did like 3 of his movies.
I almost want a Neil Breen collection too.
Yeah.
I wonder how much he wants for those fuckers. Wonder if he sells a box set.
Probably.
Yeah, he probably wants $100 for them bitches too.
Oh, I bet he does.
Yeah,
he seems like the kind of he really does.
He actually had like a seminar where a big show where people came to see him, and when he walked out, there was like thunderous applause. And he took the shit seriously. He does have a fan base, but it's because he's so fucking freaky. He's fucking weird. I don't think he gets it. MST made him famous.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because he takes himself very seriously. A serious filmmaker. He's a hack.
Yeah, well,
and a weird.
I mean, yeah, I don't know how to feel about that level of cluelessness. You know? It's like it's nice to like believe in yourself and stuff, like artistically and whatnot. But I mean, you do have to know when you're the butt of the joke, right?
Yeah, they're not mocking him. They like him, but they like him because he's fucking weird as fuck.
I will note what I was gonna say previously was that when I was talking about the makers of Time Chasers. Which was made in I think it was made in the early 90s, I want to say, like 92, 94, something like that. And they actually brought the film to the attention of MST3K. MST3K did the movie, and it's a great episode, by the way, because it's not a terrible movie. It's actually like pretty competently made and stuff, but there's a lot to make fun of, you know, because they always find something. And I think that I don't think the filmmakers expected them to kind of roast it the way they did, even though that's kind of what they do. But I think they kind of like were okay with it after. However, one person that I've heard was not okay with them mocking his movies was Jodan Baker, because they did a couple of his movies. They did Mitchell. That was Joel's last episode back in season 5. And then they did Final Justice, which is another one of my very favorite episodes. In Final Justice, Jodan Baker plays a Texas guy, like a Texas law person guy. What are they? Texas Rangers? I don't know.
Texas Rangers?
Right, yeah, whatever. Like the Chuck Norris show.
Yeah.
Like he plays one of those. And he somehow, which wouldn't happen because of jurisdictional issues, I'm sure, but he ends up going to Malta. Well, he's supposed to go to Italy, but then they get diverted to Malta. It's a whole big thing. Like where he's like following some mobster and he killed his brother and it's this big thing. So it's Jodan Baker wearing a ridiculous cowboy costume on Malta. And it is the stupidest, silliest... And one of the plot points in the movie is that Jodan Baker is, like, dyspeptic or something. And so, like, every time he goes to a bar, like, there's a running gag where he's just always asking for a glass of milk. And, like, people are making fun of him and shit because, like, he has indigestion. And it's, like, so... And he's kind of fat in this one, too. You know what I mean? So they made, like, a lot of fat jokes. They made, like, a lot of he's going to eat everything jokes. They made jokes about the milk and everything like that. I mean, it's a hilarious, hilarious episode. Now, I think after they did Mitchell, and they weren't even as mean to him. They were mean to him as in Mitchell, but that was Joel, and he wasn't as mean as Mike, like the second host, because Mike is much meaner. But Jodan Baker apparently ran into them, like, at some convention or something like that. And they heard through the grapevine that Jodan Baker wanted to kick all their asses, like, because he saw what they did with Mitchell. And so, props to the MST3K guys. So Jodan Baker was going to kick their asses for Mitchell, which, like I said, they were mean to him, but not that mean. So when they did another Jodan Baker movie, Final Justice, they were even meaner. I mean, they just fucking drilled down it. I mean, they were just terrible. I mean, they just like even over the end credits, like they made up a song about him just like eating everything. Oh my god, it's like it's so fucking funny. And it's really mean spirited, but it's like you have to laugh because he couldn't take a joke.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So it's like I thought it was funny that they're like, man, just fuck off. You're not gonna be. And it's like even in because I have the Mystery Science Theater episode guide. And they even said, and I can't remember exactly what this, but it was like fucking hilarious. They wrote about the show and they said, yeah, we heard through the grapevine that Jodon Baker wanted to beat all our asses. And it's like, yeah, well, bring it on, because it's like he'd probably take a swing, spill his drink all over his rented arm candy escort. And like also they were like really mean to him in the book too. Like they said this really hard shit about him in the book. And I was like, I love that they just like fucking piled on like that. Because some people had, like I said, some people were happy, you know, like the daughter of the guy that played the master in Manos. She actually makes a whole living now, like going to conventions and like talking about Manos and making the weird like Manos like cloak and whatever.
Yeah, she tries to sell videos constantly.
Right, and it's stuff like that. So that would not have been possible if they had not done, because I think everybody just would have forgotten about that movie. That movie, I kind of wish, it's a great premise. It's really hampered by incompetence, you know, I have to say. But it's a good idea. And so I kind of wish that somebody would sort of remake that. Because it's a great idea, but it's just, the guy, he had a camera that only could film like 30 seconds at a time and didn't have synced audio. So it's like, so everybody that's talking in the movie is off screen. So there's like weird shots where somebody's talking off screen and then you have a shot of somebody just like standing there looking at the camera. You know what I mean? It's bizarre. But I don't know. But there was something about it that resonated with everybody because that's like one of the most iconic episodes.
I'm going to put this up. I'm losing power. I'm out of power.
Yeah. I mean, like one of the most famous, I think, jokes they made about Manos was Joel said, like, the movie had only just started. It was only like 5 or 10 minutes in, and he says something like, "Every frame of this movie looks like someone's last known photograph," which is actually like really perceptive. That's exactly what this movie looks like. It just looks like it shouldn't exist, but it does. So that's why it's like kind of fascinating to me. But I can't imagine watching it without them joking about it though, because I don't know, maybe it's weird enough. Some of the movies on there I wouldn't mind watching them without it. I mean, it's always better with them joking about it, but some of the movies on there I think are like legit pretty decent movies, or at least are entertaining enough on their own. I'm talking about actually one of the best movies that they did was from, I think it was from the 50s or maybe early 60s. And it was called The Girl in Lover's Lane. It was like a thriller. And that was, I would argue that was like legitimately a good movie for the time. And they said they felt kind of bad about it, like that they, I don't know if they felt bad about it, but they were like, this was actually like one of the best movies we ever did. And it's actually like a decent movie. But then there's also stuff like, I love the Russo-Finnish, like, fantasy movies that they did, like The Day the Earth Froze, Jack Frost. I could legit watch that one without, it's better with their shit in it because it's like way funnier because it's ridiculous, but they're so over the top, like with all these crazy costumes and witches and all this other kind of stuff, so it's just like fun without that. But movies that are just like really dull or boring, I think they really need that. But I don't know. If they have like a bunch of crazy shit going on there too, they have a lot more to work with.
What's coming down out there?
Zach says the only reason I know who Jodon Baker is because he was in a couple Bond movies. Yeah, Jodon Baker was in some decent movies, but he was also in Final Justice, which is not a good movie. In fact, it's a pretty stupid and ridiculous movie. But, you know, made by good old Graydon Clark. Oh, another one that's like 80s that I think was like a really good episode was Hobgoblins, which has to be one of the most 80s movies ever fucking made. It is so 80s that you will just, there's just so much neon and big crimped hair, and there's little gremlin puppets rubbing themselves on people, like looking like they're attacking them. It's hysterical. It's a terrible movie, but it's also like pretty entertaining. And there's a nightclub in there, which is supposed to be like not supposed to be a goth club, but it's supposed to be like this rough punk club where people get murdered and there's fights and stuff. And
like
it's called
rockers were dangerous.
And it's called Club Scum.
Yeah.
And you go in there and it's clearly like a high school cafeteria, which has been like where they put like some dark lights in there and shit like that. And it's just, oh my god, it's fucking hysterical, like the shit that they do. But yeah, that was a good one too. All right, so maybe we should wrap this up because
we've gone way over time.
9:30, and it's like I gotta go to bed soon because I gotta get up early in the morning. But yeah, so we seem to have wandered far afield from a haunting, but you know that's how we do. So so Wednesday night, as I mentioned, the show that we're gonna do a Long Island serial killer recap and update because they have pretty much they think they caught the guy.
Yeah, that's him. Based on what you told me,
I mean. Yeah, I'd be very surprised if it wasn't that dude.
No, they got the evidence.
Because they've been working on it for more than a year, like getting all the evidence and stuff. Yep. So I'm pretty sure they got all their T's crossed and their I's.
This case in one of your books, didn't you? Didn't you write one in the one?
I did write about. I did.
Not understand. What is it?
Faceless Villain.
Faceless Villain. Yeah.
No, because this happened later.
Too late. Okay.
Yeah, it happened too late. Okay. But we did a show about it back in 2018.
Okay.
When it was unsolved, when they had no idea who it was. And the crazy thing about it is that this dude that they caught was not even one of the suspects that they had on the radar. Like, so they only just figured out who it was like a year ago or something like that.
Yeah, he's your boss.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not my boss because my boss
he's
is
just the boss motherfucker.
My boss is a little tiny woman with a raspy voice and a weird manicure. But you know what I mean. But he looks like somebody's boss. Like, well, I guess he was somebody's boss because he owned an architecture firm. But yeah, so we're gonna do a Long Island serial killer recap, update, all that kind of stuff on the Wednesday night show. So hopefully you guys can join us for that. That should be pretty fun. And yeah, so hopefully you guys have a good rest of your evening. Have a good day tomorrow. And and thanks for all your super chats because we got some bunch of super chats tonight, so that was cool. So we'll see you guys again on Wednesday night. Good night.